I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I am no regular citizen. Do you understand what you witnessing? You cannot tell what the difference is. I want it all and I'm winning it. I do not care about opinions. Time to make a few decisions so I can take a position. I'ma go get it, I'm punching and kicking. I keep on moving it out for me. Just do it and stop it, I'm talking G. I'm not expressing no modesty. I can't see nobody stopping me. If there's a problem, I gotta solve it. Straight to the top, I can't see myself falling. I gotta grab it, there's no time for stalling. Number one stunner, don't have other options. Now I'm fired up. I'm sorry, brother, your time's up. I see the top and I climb up. I came from the ashes, I rise up. I want it now. I gotta rise up. Rise up. I want it now. I gotta rise up. Rise up. I want it now. I gotta rise up. Rise up. I want it now. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I gotta go for the gold. I need to switch up the mode. I'm gonna win on my own. I'm in a whole nother zone. I reached the pinnacle. I don't have time, this is critical. It's time to finish you. I don't care who I just did it to. I gotta go for the gold. I need to switch up the mode. I'm gonna win on my own. I'm in a whole nother zone. I reached the pinnacle. I don't have time, this is critical. It's time to finish you. I don't care who I just did it to. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I want it now, and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. Said I'm fired up. I'm sorry your time's up. I see the top and I climb up. Came from the ashes, I rise up. Rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up. Rise up, I want it now, I gotta rise up. Rise up, I want it now, I gotta rise up. Rise up, I want it now, I gotta rise up.
Dostępne, tak samo jak i dostępne jest to łombo combo ze strony Agoro.
Welcome to the Amazon European Masters, live from the studio in Berlin. Today is an exciting day as we finally enter the knockout stage of the tournament. The 8 best ERL teams will fight for the trophy and regional pride. My name is Orchid. I'm joined by Dino and Nymera as we get ourselves ready for a first quarterfinal between LFL's Game Ward and NLC's X7 Esports. Gentlemen, how are we feeling?
Great, we're back in studio. I get to catch up with you guys again, and we get to catch up with some great League of Legends here in the ERL scene.
Hopefully, that is.
Hopefully.
How are you doing, Dino?
I'm doing great. I mean, once you go to the studio, you know it's serious business, and I think for the teams as well. I mean, group stage, anything can happen. It's best of fun, but now we get into the thick of things. Best of 5 is finally here, and I'm very interested to see what these teams can actually do.
I mean, we already said goodbye to 8 teams in group stage because it's now behind us already. But before we head into the knockouts, let's do a recap of what happened. There have been many highlights and some surprises, and one of those surprises, Nymera, I need to say, is the fact that LVP and Ultraliga haven't done too well.
Yeah, I think that, when you come into this level of competition, someone has to lose out, especially when you have very dominant regions like we do in the Amazon EU Masters. We did have the surprise of the Unicorns doing very well in their own group, but the other surprise here is how many pentakills we've had in this tournament. We've had 4 so far.
It has been insane. I mean, it is the stage where all these young players really want to show what they're worth, and these veterans actually want to show up that they still have it. But the fact that we start with a pentakill from a NAR says enough. These players are hungry to show up at the biggest stage, and they're doing it, I would say, with flying colors.
And that was Adam getting gifted that as well. First ever competitive pentakill obviously meant a lot to them. Tiller's had a few more. He had one right after that.
Yeah, this one I would say was earned. There was actually the fight was against Thorsis. It was a game that wasn't really too spicy anymore because I think at the end, Teller gets 15 kills in total, which is the most kills we had in a single game.
Yeah, so you can see, again, just these individual performances, again, really show something that we know about the ERL scene. We love to scrap at this level. You can see it from teams which have gone into the LEC with that level of talent as well. Look at a team like BDS, even though they had a difficult year in the LEC, they love to scrap, and this is the kind of style that we continue to show at this level in European Masters.
And it's more about the clash of the styles as well. I mean, if you get a pentakill on a Kalista, it can look like a really weird fight, but it means that Venzer needs to really hold his space in midst of all those chaos, and that's the chaos we're going to see as well right now. Like, it's best of 5, it's a whole different territory, and these teams don't actually know how the enemy team is going to play. You can see GameWard getting pentakills, but the question is, how do you respond? What will you do to stop this team from doing so? And that's the first time for every team going up into those best of 5, unless if you're facing teams from your own region.
I mean, that's only what's already behind us. I mean, looking into the
so
future...
much to still be played.
I mean, I hope to see another pentakill as we, have to dive into this bracket as well because, after group stage, we move into knockouts. Now we have our... the stakes have been set. Now, looking at these 8 teams that are going to face each other, one thing I need to say, Dino, it's LFL versus EU again? No, what's happening here?
Yeah, you can call it what you want. You can call it the European Masters or the LFL Masters. The LFL came to play, and they have never been as dominant as this run. They have all 4 seats into the brackets, which means 50% of the bracket is just LFL. The biggest missing thing for me is Ultraliga. We know they've been rebuilding for a while, but getting no team into the knockout stage, that gotta hurt.
Yeah, we already touched upon this a little bit, but Unicorns of Love, then again, is the one that surprised me the most. They were pretty dominant in their group.
Now, and actually listening to a lot of the interviews that we've had from some of the players, I actually think of Dusty as well when it was the Voxner talking about this, saying that there are just a lot of good teams at this tournament, and they consider Dusty to be one of them. I think Unicorns are up there too, and when I can't remember who it was doing the interview from them, they were saying, yeah, we are of a similar level to the other LFL teams, where there is this gap between them and the rest of the competition. The Unicorns, they came out first seed from a group with Vitality B in it. They looked very good doing so, especially compared to Spring, where they really were just mid-jungle or bust. They're a very consistent team now, and this whole bracket is now getting very interesting with their inclusion into it.
But then again, I have to mention, though, and I don't like saying it, but LVP... where are you? I mean, it's been a while that we've seen LVP have great success now, I know.
I mean, they have Heretics in there. I think Giants were another one of those favorites to maybe get out of groups. They stranded at 3-3. I think in general, if you look at the bracket, we see 2 regions that are really solidifying themselves, the LFL and the NLC, getting 2 seats into the bracket. While the other regions, they are still kind of banking on one team. So they only have one chance to actually make it. But hey, if that team makes it, you still win.
I mean, Namiri, you got 3 seeds in LLC. Do you actually need them?
Well, things kind of happen fairly similar to Spring if we're kind of recapping what's happened in terms of the other regions that we've got, because we did have 2 teams in groups and then getting through into the knockouts in Spring. We had the same hit. We did lose JDXL in the play-ins, but again, just making sure that we're on the board in the knockouts and in contention.
Now, we just talked about the LFL teams, but I want to emphasize just how dominant they have been. For the first time ever, all 4 LFL seeds made it into quarterfinals, and yeah, you already said it. It's the LFL Masters. I don't know what's happening. I call it LFL versus EU, but it doesn't mean that we have four similar teams, all these teams that made it through to knockouts have their own style.
Yeah, that's actually the really scary part about it. If you look at the LFL teams, you get four really different teams that are going to take on this bracket. It's not like you have one style that one team has really refined and the others are a bit worse at. They all have their own unique style, and that's something to watch out for this European Masters.
The first team I want to talk about is BDS Academy. I mean, Adam is in that top lane just wrecking up people.
Yeah, and particular if we were going to start separating out these LFL teams together and say, look, what are these individual teams doing? BDS Academy are unparalleled at playing through lane pressure and top lane. They have their mid jungle, which helped that as well when you've got Sheo and the likes getting active in the first 15 minutes of the game and just being where they need to be and allowing Adam to just play through the 1v1. He plays so many different champions to enable that.
Yeah, he's still that really crazy aggressive top laner, but the fact that BDS is so well versed in playing around him really makes it a weapon, and I'm curious to see what damage he's going to do in top lane in the knockout stage, because if he even has like a second or a third gear, it's going to be really scary.
And it's not only about the damage, it's also about what champion is he going to pick also. I mean, you never know what Adam's going to do. On the other hand, we also have Vitality B, and if I look at Vitality B, Dino, they like to fight. I mean, they bring the fight to you, even if you don't want to.
You don't have a choice. Like, your back is against the wall, you are fighting. The lovely thing about Vitality B is they play like they know they're the better players on the Rift, and they are just going to go in with a skill check that you're gonna lose. That's how they play every single instance of the early game of some fights. It does leave room for mistakes. They didn't come out as the first seed in their group as the only LFL team, but at the same time, it is so scary because you never know when they're gonna hit.
And if we're gonna call it, the LFL Masters or something like that, maybe we could call it like, I don't know, like the Spaghetti Western Masters as well, because like, draw! That's what they do. Every time they're on the Rift, they're just there and they look at you dead in the eye and they say, I'm going to mechanically outplay you. What are you going to do about that? This team is very scary when they are just all cylinders firing mechanically.
I mean, one of these players that likes to draw, in this case, is Skeens. I want to talk about a little bit about him, because looking at this plays we just saw, all of them seem to be centered about the jungler from Vitality B.
Yeah, and back in spring, I remember particularly Goldborg was giving his kind of nod to Vitality B as the most exciting LFL team at that tournament and potentially one of the dark horses. Of course, they ended up losing out to Karmine Corps, who went on that crazy run in spring, but it was one of these teams where you look at Skeens as just being this powerhouse, the driving force behind this team in terms of making players on the map and putting their name up as one of the best ERL junglers.
I also want to talk about LDLC. LDLC was one of those teams back in spring, Don, and we were like, this team's going to defeat Karmine Corp. Unfortunately, it didn't happen for them, but now Karmine Corp is not in the tournament. I think they're one of the heavy favorites once again.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we were just talking about Skeens in the jungle. You can't look at LDLC and not talk about, that guy has been stellar for the LDLC roster, and I think he's just ramping up along with his roster. They have never been as dominant as they were right now in the LFL, and going into EU Masters, they have one goal, and that's to win it all. And you hear in interviews, their players even say, we're probably the best team. The best team doesn't always win, but we are the best team.
Yeah, and there is no excuse this time, shall we say. If we're going to go put that kind of onus on them, there is no Karmine Corps here. You are definitely the pre-tournament favorite, and though we keep banding about that name, LDLC do definitely come in as favorites. They have some problems to sort out from groups. They did drop a game there, and they had some issues to work around, but make no mistake, they should be one of our favorites heading forwards.
And then the last but not the least LFL team we didn't really talk about, it's the silent kid in the class, the kid that doesn't really say anything, but it's a very smart kid. I'm talking about GameWord. We'll be seeing them play today, but GameWord seems to find these solutions how to turn games.
Yeah, and might say, they're the quiet kid. I'd say they're a sleeping dragon. Now, if one of them's in your classroom, if they're in your classroom, you've got other problems. But this team, they look at you and they see your win conditions better than any other LFL team. They are, I spoke to one of the LFL English casters, Middlecott, and he described them as the best thinkers in the LFL. They're a team that look at you, understand your win conditions, and play to them accordingly. Looking at these games against Dusty as well, did a really good job of just seeing what they could and couldn't do in team fights and playing accordingly.
Yeah, it's a bit scary that you have a team that can play so reserved in the LFL, because we've just been talking about BDS, about Vitality actually bringing the fight to you. But I mean, the graphics says it all. It's a French takeover.
No, it's more of a second revolution we're going to see here as they are taking over. I mean, looking at this game board, they're, I think, the only together with BDS Academy that went 6-0 in groups. So I kind of expect more of them. And if we look at Plains teams where game board comes from, they have a good chance of making it far in the tournament now.
There is a fun fact about that, because in every tournament we have had, a team has gone from play-ins to knockouts. So they get through that group stage. At least one team has done that. And in every tournament but one, they've not just done that, but they've gone past the first round of knockouts as well. Having this hyperbolic time chamber of having extra game time to be able to figure out what you're doing, understand the meta, and go forwards in the tournament has been very important. Maybe Game Ward can benefit from that.
Yeah, but first they have to play today, and they're playing against X7. And I must say, the LFL 4 seed, it sounds like it's not not much, but it seems like this team is growing the further we go into this tournament.
Oh, definitely. I think Game Ward, they had their hiccup at the end of the season in the LFL. They only came in as a fourth seed when they could actually probably have done better. But if you look at the names, this is like, I don't know, it's like a Prime League team, like a super team from an alternate timeline. You have a lot of big names in there, people like Chekalat that should ring a bell, and they have been figuring out their way to play on this patch. You saw him play-ins, drop a game against White Dragons, look a little bit shaky against Genk, but now they go 6-0 in groups and they look better than ever. That's actually a very scary fact, because that's exactly what Carmine Corp did last year. Last spring. Sorry.
That one.
Yeah, that one.
I mean, they are for like 3 times in a row.
3 years in a row, but yeah, it was this spring.
I mean, looking at this lineup, I want to talk about Akabana as well, because Akabana was one of the, the main roles for last split. He was the one that was able to, enable his team.
Yeah, I think that, something that you've been talking about a lot, Dino, as well, in terms of the way that I've looked at Game Ward. It has been this meticulous, over kind of like mastermind kind of players, which just look to just see what you can't trade with on the map. But there is a second way they play, and that is through Akabana. Yeah,
you basically have Game Ward in like it's a trusty French car, and it has 2 drive modes, right? You have the Akabane sports mode that goes on in the early game. Pixley Sin just gangstall playing. Melonic on a counterpick, try to get the dives off. And if that doesn't work, you have a cruise control called Inax. And Inax in team fights is a monster. The only thing they do is make sure you don't get to do anything on the map, play an almost killless game, and then set Inax up for success in the mid to late game. And it's really hard for teams in the group stage specifically to deal with when they take your pressure out of the game and play their own game. We haven't really seen a team figure it out yet.
And I think that's one of the main reasons why Game Ward is the team that has the fastest game time in group stage, but also has the slowest time in group stage. And that's something we touched upon already, is because they know what to do. They're very smart. Their decision making is just like out of this world, I would say, at some point.
Yeah, I mean, there is this kind of thing where, like, there is eventually a point in a game where they'll realize there is no way we lose if we play like this. Kind of the very chess analogy in that. That's the cruise control, right? But seeing both sides of that, the extremes, is really interesting to see, just in terms of, like, actually, they're very easy to determine when they're playing one way or the other.
Now, I do know when you put your car into sports mode, it's kind of nice to give some extra throttle. Giving some extra throttle sometimes, Dino, is like a recipe for doom.
Yeah, the problem that they have faced in the past is when they try too hard to force a place in the early game, they give room to the enemy team. Or when they take too much time of thinking about the best play and making sure that the enemy team can't really make a move on the map, then they just let the enemy team scale into the late game, and they tend to lose some of those team fights. We saw that in the play-in stage against White Dragons. We saw that in that one close game against Genk. If they give too much leeway, they are prone to make a mistake.
Now, moving to the other side, to X7, they are the second seed from the NLC, but in groups, they already, they did beat LDLC. I want to mention it once again. So I see them being a strong team. But what do they need to do to make it work once again?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think a lot of it does come to what they're going to be doing in the early game, particularly around top lane. But honestly, outside of this a little bit more, to understand what they need to do now, you need to understand where they've come from in the first place, because they've been solving issues this entire split. In spring, they got knocked out very early into the bracket because they met LDLC very early in. Yeah. They got 3-0'd in the quarterfinals. They got dumped out despite being one of our pre-tournament favorites. Summer, they've replaced their jungler, replaced their top laner, and things don't really work so well. It takes about half a split until they decide, actually, let's bring in another jungler. Viking comes in to shore up what's happening with this team, be more of a facilitating player to make sure that the already strong lanes can play through it, and they go on a dominant streak towards the end of it. And they do this by addressing these issues time and time again. Now, they did get reverse swept in the finals. That did mean that we kind of had a bit of a road bump there. Because even though they're coming in as now a second seed, a lot of people were viewing them as the best NLC team up until that point. Now, coming into this group, coming into quarterfinals, we need to see them again get on that track towards improving, making sure they can address some of these issues, particularly, as I said, maybe about their connection with their top laner.
If there's a way that X7 is going to do it, what do you expect? I mean, you talked about a proper game plan. Is that the only thing they can do?
Oh no, definitely what X7 has is they have that X factor in a couple of lanes. The problem for X7 mostly is getting that online consistently, and I think Viking came in clutch there. They went 22-5 or something
like that,
with him on the roster. Don't forget, Attila is a new addition as well to the roster, and he's very aggressive along with Cassing. So in general, I think X7 has a lot of weapons. It's just finding the right hole to punch against GameWard. That's going to be their difficulty this best of 5, basically.
Yeah, let's zoom in more into these players, because looking at the top lane, looking at Chezzy, he's, I wouldn't say a coin flipper, but it is what it is.
No, what he is someone that loves to leverage lane advantage in the way that we've seen someone like Adam from BDS Academy do as well. Chasey is an incredible individual laner, but no lane exists truly in isolation nowadays. Even if you talk about top lane as an island, if you do make mistakes where your jungler is active somewhere else on the map, you can get punished. And against LDLC, he was punished. He had a very poor game. It started with one gank, and then suddenly he was behind in the matchup. You can leverage that, man. He was behind in team fights, and it started snowballing against him. Chasey is a very good litmus test for X7. If you see his KDA and it's like 0-3, X7 are probably going to lose that game. But you see in games like this against AGO Rogue as well in the group stage, he pops off, and as soon as he has an advantage, game goes the other way for them.
So you kind of need to put him on an island, but make sure that he's safe on his island.
Yes, you need to isolate the island properly.
Actually, make sure that the enemy jungler can't get a rowboat and get over there when you're making plays on the map. The beautiful thing about Chasey is that he has had this issue for a while, but it's getting better. Like if you looked at him at Challenger Korea, where he played for Spear, that became Awesome Spear, and then he played for Damwon Kia Academy actually with Malrang. He had that mistakes. He had the same mistakes where he overextends in the lane a bit, trying to look for an outplay because that's what he likes to do. But if he polishes it in the best of 5s, then he's actually a very, very strong top laner. That might be a very big problem for GameWard.
So it's kind of up to him to not lose his lane. That's basically what I'm getting here.
Yeah, or rather like don't give those openings for someone else to lose your lane for you, where it's like, oh, I'm going to push in for this 1v1 trade. It's like, actually jungler's here, kind of whatever at that point.
Now, I do want to look at the other side of the map, which is bot lane. I mean, that 2v2 is going to be insane. You have Attila and Cassing, you have Anaxa and Camilius. We have very experienced players playing against each other here.
Yeah, and for me, while we can talk about individual players in isolation, this is where the butting of heads is going to be so important, because you have strengths in like roles in this bot lane, in the 2v2. This arm wrestle in the bot lane is going to be a big determining factor in the series.
Yeah, with the big difference that in the stats, you can see, wait, they share a pentakill in this tournament. That's great. But if you look at the damage per minute, Attila gets way more resources to play with, but he has to dish out that damage. While for GameWard, they are completely fine with playing the top side of the map and just letting them scale into the mid to late game. So for GameWard, it's more like they have a very deep champion pool. They want to try to catch the blow that Attila is going to deliver, and if Attila doesn't really get a lead, then GameWard comes out to play.
Yeah, and I heard this Attila rule from Archrom that after 26 minutes, if he has 3 items, the game is going to be won by Attila.
Both of these vehicles have a cruise control.
Now, we are pretty close to pick and ban. I want to get into the predictions now really fast, actually. Dinah, I'm going to start with you. What are your expectations for tonight?
I mean, it's a real toss-up. I mean, the LFL looks really strong. The NLC comes in as the biggest channel.
Okay, first, give me the score.
I'm going to go for a 3-2 for GameWard, and the only reason for that being is I hope it goes 5 games, because I think these teams are not consistent enough to do a 3-0 stomp, but I think having different playstyles, different drive modes will get GameWard over the finish line.
Little spoiler on that little thing at the bottom there. I'm on X7 side. I think it should go to 5 games as well. I think it should go to X7 though. I think this is a close matchup. I hope it's a close matchup. We didn't get any 5-game series in spring. I think we get one today.
Hopefully we get there. As we move on to our casters of the day, it's going to be Hip Rain and Trouble, who are going to bring us all the action.
Thank you very much, guys. Hello and welcome to the caster desk as we're getting a kick-off quarters here at the EU Masters 2022 Summer. I'm Hiprain, obviously this is Trouble. Trouble, we are about to get X7 versus GameWard, the LFL versus NLC.
LFL versus NLC. You say something that we saw over in the quarterfinals in spring 2022, something that X7 want to very easily forget because LDLC knocked them out of the quarterfinals when they were at the same stage. So, yeah, I think it's revenge time, baby.
It is revenge time. It's also time for the NLC to kind of prove why we got that 3rd seed. We won't talk about what happened to it, but at least 2 of our seeds.
Where the 3rd seed at?
They're gone. No, we don't talk about it. But, you know, like, We got two teams, NLC, into the playoffs. You know, it's a hard road though. There are 4 LFL teams in playoffs, and one of them, this is the 4th seed from the LFL Game Ward.
And X7 have got all 3 on their side of the bracket.
Yeah, it's a long and hard road for them to trudge. So let's see if they can get over this first obstacle. I think the desk are right. I'm expecting this to be a 5-game day. I'm gonna favoritism lean towards X7 on this one, just because, you know, they are our homeboys. But at the same time, I think Game Ward are terrifyingly strong. As we are into picks and bans already, the Lucian has been taken away. I'm expecting to see quite a lot of attention go towards that bot side.
Yeah.
When you got Inax and Attila in a game, you know bot lane is going to be heavily prioritized. There goes Callista.
And the funny thing is that usually we have Attila pretty linked up to the likes of Ezreal's, Draven's, but he hasn't picked up that Draven much, especially into the groups, and neither did he pick it over in the finals of the NLC where they played 5 games. He played 4 games of Zeri, 1 game of Sivir, and I think if anything, this game might be a handshake of the Sivir versus Zeri, because you're either going to ban both AD carries right here, and then you've got the likes of Lulu and Yumi going out unbanned, or you're going to ban the 2 enchanters and leave out those 2 AD carries. But it's not going to be the case, because Game Ward are more scared of Vikings. Javan, which to me screams that they want to go towards something like an Aphelios maybe, or a Sivir.
Yeah, that's quite interesting actually, because I was expecting more bot lane stuff, but like I said, Vikings been quite a powerful like pickup for X7. There's been a massive shift in their like overall power since he joined this roster. So it makes sense what you do put focus on something which he can take over the map early on, because that's Viking's style. Ooh. He gets on the map and he takes it over early. But there we go. We're going to see the Nautilus as the final ban here from the side of X7.
I think right here you pick the Yumi and then you stick it on whatever you want for Inax, right? They played such an insane game versus who was it, Matchko, if I'm not wrong, where Inax was on that Zeri, there was a Yumi on Camilius, and they completely 1v9'd this entire game. But then again, I think the Javan band kind of screamed, we want to play an immobile AD carry that could get caught by a Cataclysm, so the Sivir has been locked in. X7 have the chance right here to lock the infamous Zeri with Yumi or Zeri with Lulu.
I feel like, this is just going to be a Zeri Yumi rotation for X7. I mean, they technically don't have to pick up the Zeri. Ooh. They're going to go for the Ahri for Tempt. Now, there is a world where you could see the Zeri get flexed into another role here from Game Ward, but I very much doubt they're going to do that. We're not seeing the Zeri mids as common as we were earlier on in the year. So Game Ward now are probably going to take the Lulu. Otherwise, it's just going to get banned out. Put some of us quite comfortable here in the bot lane. Maybe a Vi lock in, actually, for Akabane as well, just because they expect the Zeri to come forward. You're going to be able to lock Attila down on that and deny him from actually being able to kind of really out-kite in the fights. But I'm thinking this is probably just going to be the Vi and the Lulu pick up here for Game Ward, unless they have something else prepared in that support role.
I think it's very important to take away the Vi as well, because she pairs up so well with the Ahri. So right here, if X7 wanted to sack completely their AD carry, they can go towards Draven, Jin, Ezreal, whatever they want with the Yumi pretty much, and say you can ban the Zeri away and then lock in that Vi together with the Ahri. That is a chocolate special, especially since Game Ward is a very bot-centric team. They do like to pick mid laners that either will control the team fights or will have early on skirmishing power like the Ahri, and here the Swain for the later on team fights. And actually X7, there you go, they pivoted off the Zeri, which is something we don't see very often when it's open and Attila is in this team, but it's gonna be the Tom and Jerry down bot.
I mean, you still have the same problem. Vi can just point and click you and lock you down, and then the Swain can jump in. But it's going to be a lot harder here for Game Ward when you've got the invisibility, you've got, they're both just popping out of nowhere, final chaptering, spraying you down in that just straight line, and will absolutely obliterate a team. There's already a lot of kind of disruptive team fighting from X7, with the Ahri dashing around the edges. Game Ward, I think it looks a little bit more kind of straightforward and kind of by the books as a team fighting comp they're locking in, and we know Game Ward like to play these kind of team fight centric comps. So expectations are we'll probably see a little bit more of a round of that kind of going round. And as X7, they're just going to ban away these enchanters. They're going to take off the Lulu. The Trundle's been banned away as well. See what the next ban's going to be.
Of course it's going to be the Renato. This is the only other enchanter that remains that works so well into the Twitch. Twitch opens with spray and pray. You put down this hostile takeover. You start spraying down your entire team. This goes really south. But very key, 2 of Vikings junglers have been banned out. So what does he have left right here? Because usually he would pull something like the Rek'Sai out if he's feeling very confident. But right here, I think X7 really need that front line for themselves. So even maybe something like a Setsuani could pop up out of nowhere. Chasey has been playing a lot of Setsuani up in the top lane as well. So maybe picking it away now that you know that Trundle is no longer something that can nullify that Setsuani would be good. Oh, they're gonna blind pick the Aatrox instead.
Chasey's been loving the Aatrox so far during the tournament. He's been very heavily leaning on these carry top laners as well. Not really been playing too many tanks. I think in groups, like Ornn was the only tank he played, and he lost on it. So he's only really been playing these very aggressive top laners. As we're going a little bit zoomed in there. We'll see what the next. Oh, a Mumu getting picked up. That is scary now for X7. There's a lot of crowd control. There's a lot of space that can be bought by Game Ward. And the question for me is, what can X7 actually pick up now to kind of round out this comp? Because Game Ward, we're going to be looking now towards that mid or top laner for them. We'll see what they actually go for here. They're going to go for the Akali. So Swain fairly flexible. So is the Akali, actually.
I just really love the fact that they locked in a Mumu here because X7 does not have any tanky member. The second 1Q hits from Camellias, everyone goes in, that member's dead. It's suddenly a 4 versus 5. What have you got from the side of X7? Let's see what they're going to choose to bring out from the jungle, because again, something maybe like a Sejuani, you need something to be able to face check into that Amumu to take that first hit, because there's so much damage coming in from the Akali, the Swain, the Vi, the Sivir, and it is going to be the case. Having these 3 seconds, when you're so durable with that Sejuani in the jungle, are going to prove to be so valuable to actually get into this river if you've been forced out from Game Ward.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the overall comps now that everything's locked in. Let's start with X7. What is the game plan here? How does this play out? What we're expecting to see?
So usually, even for both teams, they have a very similar play style. They do play for their bot lanes and they do play for the team fights. And from what you can see right here, there is this side towards the bot side, from jungle to bot, where it's like the front to back. You've got the Swain to cover for Game Ward, you've got the Ahri and the Sejuani to cover from X7, and then you've got the typical hyper carries towards the bot side of the map. The top side of the map is a different story, because you've got 2 snowball champions, the sides of Aatrox and Akali. They both scale really, really, really well, and if you let Aatrox run free with the Yuumi in the late game, he's going to run over your entire team. And as you saw, Game Ward, they're not necessarily too tanky. So if Vi overextends, if the Amumu overextends, and Aatrox is strong from a side lane, it's going to be really difficult to deal with. But to get there, you have to get through that early game, and level 6 on that Akali is going to be really hard to deal with.
It's one of those things that you kind of forget about when you have a Yuumi, and it's one of those things where you just go, right, what AD carry does Yuumi want to sit on? Actually, it's not always the case. She can go on, if you've got a carry jungler or like an aggressive top lane, like a bruiser top lane like Aatrox. He has so much inbuilt sustain, but then that adding extra sustain and that adding extra kind of like slows and crowd controls that Yuumi brings for him just makes him so much stronger. But we are now on to the Rift for our first of our quarterfinals here at the EU Masters. It's going to be Game Ward taking on X7. I am hoping we are going to get a full 5-game series. And remember, guys, don't forget to claim your August/September League of Legends monthly capsules, all for you Prime shoppers out there. You got RP, Mythic Essence, skins, and more. So make sure you do get that all sorted for yourself. But here we go. Game number 1.
Right, so we mentioned how it's going to be pretty much chaos on the top side of the map. If the Akali starts getting kills, if the Aatrox starts getting kills. And as you can see here, Chasey is opting to go towards the Comet as well. He's playing more of a pokey build, as Melonic has chosen to go for that second wind. When you get poke, you start healing. But reminder here, second wind is slightly nerfed on this patch. So when you get hit by Comet, when you get hit by Scourge from the Aatrox, who has really long range abilities, you're going to suffer that poke. But of course, after level 6, Melonic will have that kill threat potential, especially because he's running the Ignite. He can lower down that healing coming from the World Ender from the Aatrox. Now, where the teams are going to choose to focus, for me, I'm thinking that top side. You get Melonic on his Akali really fed. He can dive into the backline. He can kill the Twitch 1 versus 1. He can kill the Ahri 1 versus 1. Earlier on, though, it's probably going to be, I'm sorry, a little bit of a slower game. This is a best of 5, guys. When we're walking into quarterfinals, it's a best of 5. Usually game 1 is a little bit of a test as well. Testing the waters. You've seen how willing your opponent is to go the extra mile, to play a little bit more aggressive. And also, if you make a mistake, then you're carrying it on for the rest of that best of series, the what ifs that we're talking about. So usually it's more of a slower game for both Game Ward and X7, since they both love team fighting that late game.
Yeah, they're both 2 teams that do like to sit back and kind of just relax, catch some farm, kind of get those 2-3 items on their AD carries and then look to fight. But there is that world where Akamain on the Vi, if Game Ward are playing aggressive and they're playing fast and he's ahead, he is the person who dictates that speed for the team. So keep your eye on this Vi and see what they're looking to do. So far, starting on their blue side, clearing downwards, and will be on that bottom side of the map. But same for Viking, who's done 2 camps and immediately started to rotate towards the bottom side of the map. So expect to see both of these junglers showing up into some early action. As cutting over to mid lane, Tempt and Chocolate actually both half HP, so being a fairly aggressive lane where they've just been trading with each other as much as possible.
And for these two teams, this quarterfinal means a lot. For Game Ward, they're coming in as the 4th seed of the LFL. They were doing pretty fine over a regular season. They were 2nd, but then they flopped in the playoffs, and so did X7. X7 were looking very strong over in the regular split.
Yeah.
We thought they were going to take the crown again from Spring, but it wasn't the case. They got reverse swept in the finals by Dusty. And right here, they're looking to reclaim that glory from Spring. Actually, LDLC was the one that knocked them out in 2022 Spring, and now Game Ward, another LFL team that they have to face over in the quarterfinals. But it doesn't end there, Heatbrain, because if X7 do make it through, this particular LFL team, they're going to have to face either LFL Seed 2 or LFL Seed number 3 in the semifinals.
Yeah,
so
if they
the
can make it
LFL
through
teams,
here,
they're never ending.
it is a gauntlet of France for the side of X7 if they're going to make it through today's action. This matchup is one we've been very excited for because, like you were saying, they're both teams who kind of failed and fumbled during playoffs. You know, X7 should have 3-0'd their domestic finals at NLC, but they just threw game 3 and then it snowballed from there. And, you know, it was an element of them being a little bit too cocky versus Dusty. Dusty got wind in their sails and kind of carried that momentum forwards. And Game Ward are also another team who are a little bit guilty of getting cocky, maybe resting on their laurels a little bit, getting punished for it. So both these teams, you know, made mistakes on the tail end of their season domestically, and they really want to come back and prove that they are better than 2nd and 4th in their region.
And last time Chocolate also played Swain, it was against Dusty, another NLC team, and he actually solo killed the mid laner on the Swain. So he's very familiar with the matchup right here. Swain into the Ahri. He forced the early teleport from Tempt and kept his, getting that quick recall right there. And let's see where these junglers are going to choose to go first, right? Because Vi is looking for that level 6. He's looking to pin someone down with the ultimate and then have the follow-up come through. But so is Sejuani, right? He's looking for that long-range ult to pin someone down and then go all in. And I feel like this is most likely going to happen towards that bottom of the map where you do have the dragon, because both of these teams love their priority bottom lanes, especially when they have hyper carries, which means they do love the early dragons for that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because when you look at the statistics, it's very interesting. Both these teams have very high dragon presence in the game. So, Game Ward have 72% of the dragons taken in their games are taken by them. On the side of X7, they're 77%. But the difference is X7 consistently take that first dragon, while Game Ward only get 50% of their dragons early. So X7, while both these teams do play for their bot side, X7 really lean into their bot side early on in the game to enable some map pressure for themselves so they can kind of snowball the game from there.
And that was very clever by the X7 bot lane right there. They had a ward on that 3rd bush. The second they saw, they forced basically Game Ward's bot lane to stay around. But look, there's Viking on the side as well. He's possibly looking for a big shot, but because the wave is too large, you can't necessarily force a dive. Chocolate is also level 6. He was hovering towards that bot side of the map. Tempt still level 5, not teleport to join that fight. So they're just taking the waves, they're farming the back and forth. This is the nature of a best of 5. You're testing the waters in that first game. How far is your opponent willing to go? How far are you willing to go for these early game advantages? And especially when you're scaling that much into the late game for both of these teams, you don't necessarily care too much about pressuring that early game advantage, because if something gets out of control, it'll be really difficult to shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. Viking is still behind Akabane as well. He's only just about to tick over to that level 5 mark there. So has got a bit of a ways to go. Akabane, you know, already had that level 5, working towards that level 6 mark for himself. Is a little bit further up over his counterpart. But actually Viking, as I just look at the experience, was able to bounce back as he just took his entire bot side. So he's fine. Camille's coming on a long flank here, but spotted out by that control ward means that he should be safe as Temp dodges away on the claw.
And here's what Tem's going to have to be very respectful of. Every single time that bot lane resets, you know that Yuumi is going to go together with Twitch. So the Yuumi is going to end up in the bot lane, but Amumu can actually roam the map and possibly try to get you kills or summons in the early game. So Tempt is going to have to be extremely respectful from Camilius, for Camilius' roams right here. You see, he's still sticking around. Maybe if you get that Ahri ult, that's then your ticket to walk into that Dragon Pit and get that very early Dragon if Tempt doesn't have his ultimate up and available. Because, yes, Yuumi is a very broken champion and very hated for that reason, but early on in the laning phase, you're usually not that powerful, and then also you cannot roam necessarily too much unless you stick on the jungler, right? So Camilius right here has the upper hand if he wants to make something happen very early on.
Yeah, well, both of these champions are very good in a team fight, the Amumu and the Yuumi. The Yuumi is entirely utility for these bigger fights and these skirmishes where, you have a bit of crowd control, you have that roaming potential, you have a lot more early presence as that Amumu. But for now, we are going to see Game Ward just get shoved in underneath the tower somewhat, but not really too much of me taken in that time. Akabane has level 6 and is making their way up towards the mid lane. Tempt trying to get away for the moment as Akabane charging up the queue. Not going to come over the wall. And they actually do have their support in Camilius roaming around as well as Viking, constantly trying to look out to spot where Camilius is.
Actually, I think Viking has gotten there unspotted. Now he's going to be spotted, of course, by the control ward, but Inax is all alone towards the bots of the map. Viking is taking his red, and, Cabana is taking his red, but Viking might be spotted here. He will definitely get spotted right here, but the objective that X7 came for was to take that plate. Viking might have to flash.
Viking's in trouble. He's going to have to blow it down. Throws onto Inax, but he can't get over the wall in time. First blood to Akabane.
That was very beautifully done. Viking oversteps his welcome on the map, and Chekolad.
Oh, Tempt has to flash away, still holding that ult a little bit longer. He's going to chase in, and Chekolad finds the solo kill onto Tempt.
Yet again, last time we saw Chekolad on the Swain, he was against NLC's Dusty. He solo killed Backland on the Ahri. He solo kills Tempt on the Ahri as well. He knows the matchup so freaking well. And again, Viking here, he's overextending. He does not expect Akabane to be towards that bot side of the map. And we mentioned, if Amumu hits that Q, you've got so much CC together with the second Q. And lovely stuff right there from Akabane. Instantly chains up the ultimate as well to not allow Viking to flash through the wall. Beautiful chain also from Chekolad. Chases Tempt underneath this tower, who didn't have another charge of the ult.
Yeah, that was really, really clean stuff there from Chekolad, actually. Solo killing Tempt on, a pick which he's actually been playing quite a lot during the group stages of this tournament. And X7 off to a rough start here, now down 1,000 gold, but they are looking to try and pull that back somewhat as Melonik jumps over the wall. Chasey does chase him, but not going to commit for anything more as X7 actually lost their first dragon of the game, and they're going to now turn their attention towards this Rift Tower as they've got some presence over here. And with Akabane no ultimate available, neither for Chekolad, this should be pretty much a surefire one as they're using the big old combo onto the Swain. Attila finds himself the kill. Beautiful pick up there. Rift Herald as well for X7, and they bounce back after that kind of series of misplays earlier.
That is usually a move that Game Ward does. They will rotate into the mid lane, their bot lane, and they'll go for the Rift Herald, but this time it is X7 because they know they have the ultimate advantage. But Inax on the bot lane has been shoving in two waves. Attila needs to be very careful before he approaches.
Oh no, he's in trouble. Instant flashes out. Sivir ult goes down as well, but not going to get caught. Just going to lose a whole lot of this wave. Vikings here now with that ultimate available, so Tilla will catch this wave, but not before giving up a few plays. Let's have a look at this mid lane though.
Yeah, that was very well done. They were actually pinged on the map. Chekolad knew that Kasing and Attila were over there. He overextends, doesn't have ultimate or flash from the previous engage with Tempt in the mid lane. So a little bit questionable right there, especially since Attila did come from Vision together with the Yuumi. But that was a mistake that was instantly capitalized upon from the side of X7, but the bot lane did lose a bunch of gold from that bot lane since they lost a bunch of plates, experience and gold from all the waves that got crushed in underneath Attila's tower while he was still in the mid lane. But now they do have the Rift Herald in their pockets, so they can actually look to cash in even more on the rat.
And crucially, the goal between the AD carries is dead even. No one has a gold lead, but there is a Blade the Ruined King finished up onto Attila. Inax is heading back to base and should get close, if not finish up, but not quite there. But if we do look at full items right now, it is only Attila and Akabane who's got that Chemtech Chainsword finished up on the Vi. So gonna make Chasey's life a little bit harder. You talked about the Ignite, but this is, you know, at least not on a cooldown. You would just be able to apply those Grievous Wounds to him. And obviously with the Yuumi about as well, kind of denying a bit more of that sustain as X7 are fishing around for something bot side.
Yeah, and that item is actually very gold efficient as well. Something along the lines of more than 100% efficient, minus the passive even. So adding the passive, which is the Grievous Wounds right there, it's not the top of the top Grievous Wounds, but it's good enough for that, especially early game. But mind you, very nice flash right there from Inax instantly to not get caught. But mind you, that means that Vi, yes, she's very strong, she deals damage, but she's also very squishy. So if she does get caught out by a Viking ult, by Temp's Charm, by an ultimate from Kasing's Yuumi, could end up going down real quick.
That was a really nice play there by the side of X7, just because Attila burnt his flash earlier when that potential dive went down. So now actually burning Inax's in response kind of equalizes out the score somewhat on that front. And right now the gold lead is still 1,000 in favor of Game Ward, and it's really anybody's kind of tempo to take, I guess. You know, it's only 1,000 gold lead. That gold lead is also spread very evenly across a lot of their members. The biggest gold lead in the game right now is Chekolad with 500 gold up over Temp, so nothing major for either team, but he has now finished up his Crystal Scepter. The Kraken Slayer has been finished up for Inax as well, so items are starting to roll over. People are starting to hit their kind of first items, and we'll see what that's going to actually do for the state of the game here.
I think it's so important that the Rylai's is completed on the side of Chekola, because she can actually be that Ray boss in the choke points right now, where X7 don't necessarily have many items completed. No item completed in the jungle, no item completed in the, on this Ahri, which means that the Ahri will not be that easy to pop you, even though it's full squishes on the side of Game Ward, right? So having Chekola with his Rylai's, very tanky, slowing people down through choke points, it's going to be very important. Since 30 seconds, we've got another dragon coming. Very nice tempo play right there from Viking as well. He's going to drop the Rift Herald in the mid lane. Game Board are going to have to respond to that, and they can move into the river from the side of X7, but that is...
not moving. That's not moving, Trouble. It's just gone. Temp's able to dodge away on that first claw, makes it the second as well. Viking flashes away. They throw all of the CC onto Camilius. He has to use the stoppage for the moment. They're going to chase onto the Rat for the moment. Akabane holding his life for as long as possible, but no, Attila is going to go down, and Viking is on his own. Only got a kitty cat with him, and it is a whitewash for the side of Game Ward. Maybe a hero play can come down, but the charm doesn't quite connect. They get the lockdown onto Chasey as well, and Game Ward, they're going to pick up this second dragon for free.
And Game Ward seem a lot more decisive when they want to make a move. If they want to engage, they engage. X7 seem to be on a completely different page. Ahri's going out from the sort of Tempt while Chasey's dipping in, but then Viking flashes away when they've already caught an Amumu, and you see how we said Viking on this Sejuani is going to be the face, but why are you flashing away? You actually got a pretty good ultimate onto Camillus' Amumu. You need to stand in front of your twits to beat that rock and wall in front of your Hypercarry, especially since Attila does not have that ultimate, so being stuck on the ramp right there with Chekolad actually stopping any entry from mid lane as well with his ultimate.
Yeah.
Really good stuff right there from Game Ward, stopping the indecisiveness, I would say, right there from X7.
Well, as soon as Vikings ult hit Camillus, Akabane was like, it's easy. I can just press R on the Rat and take Attila out of the game. And without any front line, with the fact that the cat disconnected as well, Attila was just easy pickings. And now has got his flash, but hasn't got his cleanse. Suede's going to shove into Inax. Inax is a Sivir, though, so that's going to be dealt with fairly quickly. And this Tri-Brush is just Camillus' and Akabane's. They just live here. They absolutely adore sitting in this bush. It's all about just sitting for the pot lane. And yeah, we are taking notes right now. Attila, what can he do? Or is he just going to have to play this chill? But they're going to spot him out on the wall.
No. If Attila gets out of Invis right here, he's in he's going to be in really bad hands, the hands of Akabane, which is not going to be a very fun road, but Viking is going to be around. Now, of course, there are ultimates all across the board. Attila does have his flash available, but you do not have the first dips from the mid lane. Chekolad is always the first one to move from that mid lane into the river. X7 might still look. It's actually them this time.
Oh, massive whiff on the ultimate, but the charm's going to be enough to kill Camillus as Attila is untouched this time. They're jumping in for Temps. Temps can't get away. Temps going down. Kasing's going to be next to follow as well. As Chekolat slowing down Viking, leaving Attila on his lonesome against the tower as Attila's just holding fast and long. Akabane finds him with the Q. Attila flashes, finds himself a return kill, but Inax will take him out. 4 members of X7 fall.
3, 0, and 5 for Inax CV, and this is why they prioritized it over any other AD carry that was left available. Zeri was up for grabs, Aphelios was up for grabs, Inax chose Sivir. They banned the Jarvan for that reason. They picked the Sivir, and every single time there's an engage coming in from game mode, Inax completely untouched on that backline. And again, X7, who we've been praising a lot for the team fight in Chasey.
Chasey's probably just going to be killed here. Camillus is chasing him down. Maybe if he can land that Q, he might be able to survive. Can't quite get the damage off for the moment from Chasey, but now he's CC'd. Melonic will come forward as his kill is secured by his support. But a beautiful play on the top side here, and Game Wood now 10-3 in the kill score. And we'll have a look at this fight in the bot side once again.
Yeah, Viking sees Camillus right there. He knows he has no ulti, but he does flash, but he does whiff the ultimate completely. And as you can see, Kasing is ulting the wrong direction whilst everyone is coming from the top side of the river. Kasing is ulting towards that dragon pit. So Game Wood find out the best way to shove X7 into a very narrow choke point. This is where Sivir and her ricochets completely shine. And even though Attila tries his hardest to get a kill back, and he does manage to do so, that Sivir right now is 2,000 gold in the lead. 2 items in, got the boots, gonna cash in on the call as well. That is a very rich AD carry, and when we're talking about the story of the 2 AD carries, right? Inax in the LEC, played for Schalke. Attila has been to Worlds, has taken down AD carries like Uzi in his career. This is why these two teams are so bot-centric.
Oh, another flash comes out. They are continuing to beat the pressure up onto Camillus. Attila's able to take him down. That's going to help because Attila is 2 levels down on Inax right now.
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, Inax did receive a bunch of star platings from
he's also just had his jungle of bot lane all game as well, so he's been pretty safe while Attila...
You telling me this is a jungle diffy here, Hiprin?
I'm not going to say it's a diffy in the jiffy, but, you know, there has been a little bit of attention from Akabane. And this is the thing about the Vi, is the Vi entered into the meta because it was picked up as a way to counter Zeri, but Vi still does exactly the same job even if it's not a Zeri. You pick the AD carry and you just CC them and you will follow them no matter where they go and you're able to take them out. So this is why this champ has been kind of showing up more and more, and you know they expected this to be into Attila Zeri, but it works just the same in Switch.
I'm gonna be honest with you, it gets worse.
Yeah.
I think your biggest concern is not the Sivir or the Vi or the Swain, to be honest. I think it's Melonic's Akali, who has been farming a storm on the top side of the map. He's got his Riftmaker completed, and who stops that Akali when she manages to find a way into the backline, which is now much easier, because if Akabane presses R onto Attila, then very instantly Melonic can jump onto the back and assassinate the rat with his jungler. So it becomes really difficult because you don't have a point-click stun or any type of CC to lock down that Akali from just completely demolishing that backline. So the second Melonic starts joining the fights, the second he starts finding these flanks and these opportunities to get onto Attila, the team fights are going to get much more difficult for X7, and Kasing might have to actually jump ship and get onto Chasey to see who can kill the backline faster here.
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of this game kind of just slow down. It's very much in the tempo of Game Warden. They're a team that don't normally overreach or overextend, especially in this first game of a best of 5 here. They're going to be playing relatively calm. But Chasey, he's overextended. He's flashed, but there's the constant CC, the constant slows. I mean, there is nowhere for him to go. And Akabane able to take him down. This will be the last Alta Turret crumbling here as X7 just losing way too much here in this game 1. Getting punished heavily by Game Ward. You just have a fantastic read on the current state of the map.
And again, that's a little bit of a whoopsie for Chasey as well. Your bot lane is backing. They're all the way back in the fountain. You're not allowed to be halfway past past your top lane because you're literally the only lane that can get ganked at this particular moment, and you cannot overexpose yourself like this. Give yet another kill away to Akabane, who now is looking towards his mythic item. Is going to be most likely the Crossfire.
They're looking for Attila, but Attila has found himself caught. Camilla's on the flank. Xinax is able to take him down. Tem finds an assassination off, but no, he is going to go down. And this fight has gone so wrong, so quick. Chasey gets the cat on him, but he's got to somehow 1 versus 4. He can't survive, and it's a triple kill over to Melanic. Kasing will be going down. An ace for the side of Game Ward as they just slam X7.
So decisive yet again from Game Ward. It's actually X7 who have been looking over and over again with that Twitch Yumi in the mid, and whoever overextends, they instantly jump on them. But Akabane does not blink at all. The second the Twitch opens fire onto this Vi, Akabane says, in your face. He'll cue the rat, stun him in place, and then hourglass every single bit of damage that's coming through. And Camillus with a lovely flank as well keeps Twitch in place. The rest of Game Ward arrive, and it's a absolute bloodbath. Yes, Chasey has the Yumi on him here, and yes, potentially we could be talking about a different story if he had his ultimate, but without the ultimate, without that heal, without the extra stats, it's really difficult to 1v5.
Yeah, I mean, he was too late to the party. Camillus, that flank was just beautiful because Attila, had nowhere to go. He didn't have his cat on him. He didn't have Kasing with him, and he was just easy pickings. And it was actually Inax with a ricochet to take him down as well. So Attila did get him back though. Or I can't remember who he killed though, but he got someone back because he got him with the poison. But even so, that was a play started by X7, and you're starting to see maybe a little bit of desperation coming out. They're playing for these over-eager engages just to try and find a pick, but Game Ward are just so on it. They can read this play coming a mile off, and they instantly punish with it.
I think for X7, you kind of have to at this point. You're 8,000 gold behind. If you play the front to back, into a Swain, into an Akali, into a Sivir, yes, you might kill one of them, but the rest of them will wipe you out of the picture completely. Yeah. So it becomes really difficult. Attila is looking again, but Game Ward right now have read this play. You see Akabane is even charging.
Oh, they look to find Akabane. He jumps straight in with the ultimate. The charm's going to connect. Attila has to flash away. Does not even able to find the kill. What a lockdown. What a slaughter. A triple kill over to Inax, and it is just another absolute decimation of a team fight from the LFL 4th seed.
Not a single member dies from the side of Game Ward. They're going to take away 5 lives from X7. They're going to take their mid lane tier 2, and they're going to sprint it down to Baron as well, so they can make sure that on the next fight, if they do ace them again, it's going to be game over. And look at this again. It's the same exact move from Attila, 3rd, 4th time in a row. Game Ward have read this play. Akabane is literally charging in his face, and the second they find him, they jump into the backline, and it's like, fine, you're almost taking down our Vi. Checo that flashes in with that Swain ult. There's so many ricochets jumping from one to another, and Melanic is just having the best time of his life. There's no CC on that Akali.
It didn't make an overall massive difference to the fight, but Akabane, when he re-entered the fight, caught Kasing mid-jump and actually stopped him from reconnecting, so at least everybody survived. Just to add insult to injury, that fight was done no matter what, but it was a cool little kind of end flare
Make it
to
a little
that
bit
fight.
worse, you know?
Yeah, and speaking of flares...
Oh, get the mental edge.
Yeah?
Yeah. You know how you get the mental edge?
Yeah.
You find the Yumi whilst it's jumping from one side to another with a Q, that's very fancy. And 2, you stick a Magice in your build.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. They've got 22 stacks on Checkerlad. He is stacking up his book right now. I thought they were going for the play again. I really feel like they're just like constantly trying it and hoping, but one time
I'm not gonna lie, I think it is the only play. You need to use that Twitch to actually try to find a pick and get it to become a 4 versus 5. But Game Ward are bundled up as 4 the entire time. Melanic has so much mobility to get out of the Twitch or even assassinate him, right? So they definitely don't want to be going towards that Akali. But the rest of Game Ward are always sticking together as 4, so it's really difficult for Attila to find an opening. I think X7 will have to fight this one.
Oh, they're looking in for the charm. They find the knockup. Checkerlad instantly uses the stopwatch. The final chapter's not going to knock anybody down. As Checkerlad is shut down by Attila, but he's half health already, and it's a 1 for 2 in favor as here comes Melanic. Finds himself the flip. Kasing, maybe he can get to Tempt. No, he can't. The charm connects by Tempt. The laser beam comes down as Tempt maybe can find a little bit of additional damage off. Can't quite connect it. Can't quite finish off Melanic. And the inhibitor will be destroyed here by Game Ward. They may even continue to pressure
to be back.
to try and end this game. They've got the teleports, like you said. They're going to be bringing them in. They're going to be looking to close this game number 1 versus X7 as Melanic will come in with a shuriken blip on the Tempt finds himself a shutdown, and maybe he's held on. They can't end.
Viking is up in 2 seconds. They can't end. Chasey in 7. So the fact that Melanic actually dies there, that means less wave clear, less damage onto these towers. And let's see this again, because Tem finds a really nice charm onto Checolad. But Checolad has an ult, he has his hourglass, he's a pretty beefy Swain at this point, who's also tanking the tower, so yeah, okay, you get 2, but what did we say? When that Akali suddenly joins the fight, and Akali that's uber fed right now, you're gonna end up going down, and even though the charm did hit, Melanic managed to stop that right before he died, and 2.5 items onto this Akali at this point. You've got 3 items on your Vi, plus that GA. Right here, Akabane, all he has to do is just find Attila, find that Twitch, press that button, don't care if you die, because all your team is just going to follow through, and Twitch is just going to die on the spot.
Oh no, Viking. He's just able to slide out of there. This is Dragon Soul as well. We haven't really talked about this, but yeah. GW are just controlling the Dragons. They are on to their 4th, and they should be able to pick this one up. It's going to be pretty hard for X7 to contest it with the gold lead being 13,000 with the amount of crowd control they have as Attila is looking for it, but there is that big one. They spotted him out and everything's thrown down. Attila, not long for the world, unfortunately, taken down by Checolad as Tempt jumps in and Tempt is locked down. That's going to be a kill for the Vi as Inax will fall. Viking not able to contest it, not able to kill Inax. Inax able to hold his life, and a 4 for 1 fight. 4 for none fight, actually, in favor of GW. This is going to be game number 1 over to the LFL first seed as Akabane has found himself Chasey. Chasey is going to try and 1v1 him, but I doubt he's going to be able to do anything here. It's a delayed ace, but it is a victory nonetheless for Game Ward in our first game of the day.
And the LFL in the quarterfinals claim that first game versus the NOC, the rivalry got born back in 2021 with BTXL back then, and Common Corp still lives, but the LFL is still superior to this, game, I would say.
Game, yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves, yeah.
It's a best of 5, and honestly, I would like to say that this is first game jitters, maybe from the set of X7, because Game Ward showed up and showed off. They showed the exact same game that we've been seeing before. We've seen that the second they sort of like scan the map, they know that they can play very slow, calculated, and they instantly just will grab one mistake and slowly start raising the gold lead through there. They don't overextend. They don't play way too aggressive. They just take what is given to them. And honestly, I gotta give props to Akabane because she completely demolished the entire map with that Vi.
To me, it felt that game was very much it was just, there was a very clear game plan for Game Ward there, and they just executed on that. It felt like X7, they tried something and they were caught off on it. It's only game 1 of best of 5, so we'll see what they have coming into this next game. But for us, it's time for us to pass it back over to the analysts to break down that game a little bit more. So over to you guys.
I mean, breaking down the game, I mean, X7 kind of got broken because Dino, I think we can say the TGV has arrived as Game Ward. I don't know what that was. Melanic said, you want a fast series? I want to see a fast series. I didn't want to see a massacre.
I mean, yeah, I think a lot of it started with how the draft went for them, but then in the game as well, you see that Game Ward, once you give them an inch, they just run away with the game. And the scary part is that they didn't end up making any of those mistakes that they maybe did in the past that gave X7 a way back in. Like X7 was just shut out of the game completely, and they never got the opportunity to actually turn it around.
Now, it's only game 1, though. Do you think they have the fortitude to keep going? Because, I mean, this is a harsh loss.
Yeah, 100% they've got the fortitude to keep going. I think that what we saw from that draft was effectively there was an onus on X7 to do well through laning phase so they could combat when it came to the first couple of fights when it came into the game. When you have things like the Vi and the Amumu, which can really start off the fight very, very well. And what we saw was actually X7, they actually didn't manage to get that much done in lane. Tempt was losing in what is a fairly even matchup in the Ahri versus the Swain. Chasey was doing okay in the top lane, but it wasn't crushing. He certainly didn't impact the map in the way that they needed them to. So in terms of X7 side, I think there's a lot that they can do to just adjust their own level of play before they start going like, oh, how do we deal with what Game Ward are doing? There are a couple of things they have to address first.
Yeah, let's start things off coming in with the draft, because looking at the draft in particular, it felt like, yeah, these are drafts I would place with these teams, Nymera.
Yeah, I think that, as we said, we've talked about particularly Chasey being a player that really wants to be affecting the laning phase. But when we go into the first kind of kills of the game, you can see that actually the game's been fairly slow up until this point, but immediately kill goes down bot side, and if it's coming from lane, Tempt, the rock of X7, the solid part, gets killed in a solo kill without really much to say about it in the mid lane.
Was this the Akabana sports mode you were talking about, Darno?
I mean, yeah, the thing is, it's a trusty car, right? It's not an actual sports car, so it's going faster, but it still looks a bit cool, calm, and collected. You see that in the bot lane, they get a small lead, and then when they go to the mid lane, you have that solo kill. But then X7 tries to throw their bodies at the problem. The problem is that Game Ward already knows what X7 is going to do before they even do it.
And everything you can see in particularly that last clip as well is that Chasey actually just isn't impacting that fight. This fight here, again, is arguably even worse. Like, you look at this fight and it's just, Chasey's not in the equation. The teleport is channeled after 2 people are already dead at this point. And Game Ward, I think that Trouble called it out really, really well within the middle of this game. Game Ward were just more decisive.
Now, I'm looking at this fight. I was like, is there anything they could have done better? Because at this point, I mean, the game was kind of lost, right? There wasn't really much to save anymore. I kind of want to talk about Akabana. I mean, we talked about a sports mode because I feel like Akabana is on, you know, the base. He's like the baseline that Game Wards needs, and that's the baseline that they set up very early into the game. We touched upon it in the bot lane, but he manages very well throughout the entire game, Dino.
Yeah, a lot of Akabana's plays and Game Ward plays come around shot calling, around neutral objectives, around lanes that are most of the time doing okay. So it's not weird to know that he's a very vital part, but there's just such a stark difference between Akabane that gets an early lead and is able to be like, okay, just follow me into the dive. I'm Vi, I'm going to find whoever is out of position. I'm going to go in and the rest can follow, or in games where Akabane is actually put behind. And I think, although we saw Viking against LDLC and the rest of X7 actually controlling Yike, they didn't really do that much with the early vision ward that Viking put down. Viking got the bot side scuttle, but then in the end they still lost the bot side, they still lost that first gank. So I would like to see X7 try to control Akabane a bit more, because if you give him champions like a Vi and Lee Sin and he runs away with the game, they can't really seem to stop him into mid to late game.
And I think for me, I'm going to take a little bit less of a philosophical overhead approach. You just got to lane better, X7. You look at that mid lane, you look at that top lane.
Better. It's easy.
There is something to that, because you look at that Ahri into the Swain matchup, it shouldn't be going like that. You go at the top lane matchup. Okay, sure, if you're picking for lane, then you got to smash lane Chasey. Otherwise, what's the value of that pick? X7 need to step up on an individual level, I think, at this point.
Well, what do you expect from the next game? Because they have side selection right now. I'm not sure what side they... Because I guess it's going to be blue side?
Well, X7, I think they might prefer... This is the thing, I actually feel like counter pick for the laners of X7 is a very powerful thing. I don't necessarily think it's going to be about the big power picks. I think it is more about where you're going to get your advantages just very early into that game. So I wonder if X7 stay on red.
I think they're fine with red side. They even gave over the Sivir, and they had a plan with the Twitch Yumi that almost got online with that one gank in the mid lane. I think you don't want to give red side to Gameward, because then they set up Melonic for counter picks, and Chasey is already having not the best start to this series. So I would love a red side, just put Chasey up for success. As you said, Nightmare, focus on those solo lanes and just make sure that they have a better game than game one.
I mean, this post-game breakdown just says it all. That game was just catastrophic for X7, but as I already mentioned, it's not over yet. I mean, the first game, it's something we discussed behind the scenes as well, is like, how much does this first game matter to both of these teams?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's game one. Maybe X7 have some multiple... You expect you prep multiple drafts for a best of 5, right? You're thinking about different ways you can go about it. And I think that seeing particularly the engaged support coming out of Chameleos, I know that's something that you were talking about in the green room a lot, actually, in terms of the difference between the supports. Maybe that's something that they didn't expect as much of coming into this best of 5, particularly since both of these supports played similar champion pools coming into this best of 5. Maybe that's something that they have a look at. Try and flip over that bot lane matchup a little bit so it affects the team fights later on.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that support matchup, because I mean, it's Kasing versus Chameleos. It's a very experienced one. Did you feel like this was all about the bot lane again?
I mean, it wasn't all about the bot lane. I think, for me, the biggest standout performer for X7, definitely in the early game, was Chocolate. The way that he was winning his lane against the Rock. Your Rock is not supposed to crumble. So X7 really needs Tempt to be there and be very solid. But Chocolate was winning that 1v1. He even got a 1v1 kill. He was up in last hits. And then once the team fights rolled around, the bot lane of a Sivir was really easy to play. Chameleos had very, very good plays. But I distinctly remember Chocolate just running in, pumping out all that damage. So there's an issue needed to be solved in the solo lanes that you can't solve by winning bot lane.
Very short point now, though, Namera. Do you need a more self-sufficient top lane in this case?
I think the top laner is fine, but if you're going to play it like this, you got to impact the game when the team calls for you.
X7 is down one game against GameWard, but nothing is lost yet as we have an entire best of 5 to play. We're going to head it over to a break. When we return, it's time for Game 2 between GameWard and X7 Esports.
I know I'm bad, ain't come to play. So like a savage or renegade. I'm so chaotic, I show up, it cause a problem. They diagnose me a psycho, I'm taking off like a rocket. I know I'm bad, ain't come to play. So like a savage or renegade. I'm so chaotic, I show up, it cause a problem. They diagnose me a psycho, I'm taking off like a rocket. Stand up guy, they asking me who am I. They wanna know who that, I tell her give them a try. They'll soon find out and move back with eyes open up wide. I'm here, the ruler's back to take it over for life. Yeah, you know I'm major, how I run it so iconic. They all treat me like the mayor. Everything that you did, I have done it all on paper. Super like I'm Sonic, see you later, get your weight up. Yeah. Applying the pressure, swear on my soul that I will not let up. I'm on a roll and I'm in control, so get a hold cause I am that fed up. Don't need a pole to decide who is better. Never will fold and never will settle. They call me a problem, but I come and solve it. I promise a novice can handle me never, ever. I know I'm bad, ain't come to play. So like a savage or renegade. I'm so chaotic, I show up, it cause a problem. They diagnose me a psycho, I'm taking off like a rocket. I know I'm bad, ain't come to play. So like a savage or renegade. I'm so chaotic, I show up, it cause a problem. They diagnose me a psycho, I'm taking off like a rocket. I know I'm bad, ain't come to play. I'm so chaotic, I show up, they cause a problem. They diagnose me a psycho, I'm taking off like a rocket. I'm so alive, my enemies running high. They witness how I arrive. They all tucking their pride and cry. I'm so alive, my heart is cold as ice. I started, then I rise. They all ducking, they hide inside. Who gonna stop me? I am the man and they all a copy. Look at them stand, they licorice sloppy. I got these hands, they straight like it's Rocky. I got the plan of becoming a leader. You just a fan, so stay in your pocket. I am the plan, the man, and you watch me. People they saying I'm really chaotic, yeah. I know I'm bad, ain't come to play. So like a savage or renegade. I'm so chaotic, I show up, it cause a problem. They diagnose me a psycho, I'm taking off like a rocket. I know I'm bad, ain't come to play. So like a savage or renegade. I'm so chaotic, I show up, it cause a problem. They diagnose me a psycho, I'm taking off like a rocket.
Baby, como nadie, quiero respirar hasta tu aire. No quiero que te vayas a terminar. Tú me tienes loco, ya lo sabes. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie. Quiero respirar hasta tu aire. No quiero que te vayas a terminar. Tú me tienes loco, ya lo sabes. Tú no me lo pones fácil. Duro voy a darte a ti, pa' que no te olvides de mí, pa' que no te olvides de mí. Tú no me lo pones fácil. Duro voy a darte a ti, pa' que no te olvides de mí, pa' que no te olvides de mí. Puede ser que la vida nos separe, puede ser que no te guste nadie, puede ser que estemos hechos para manos, puede ser, puede ser, puede ser, puede ser que la vida nos separe, puede ser que no te guste nadie, puede ser que estemos hechos para amarnos. Tú te mueves, mueves, baby, como nadie. Quiero respirar hasta tu aire. No quiero que te vayas de mi nave. Tú me tienes loco, ya lo sabes. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie. Quiero respirar hasta tu aire. No quiero que te vayas de mi nave. Tú me tienes loco, ya lo sabes. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie, nadie. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie, te mueves, baby, como nadie. Tú me tienes loco, ya lo sabes.
Welcome back to the Amazon European Masters live from the studio in Berlin. GameWard leads the first quarterfinal series with 1-0 versus X7 Esports. And if you missed that game, you didn't miss a lot of things unless you're a GameWard fan, because that was an absolute stomp, I need to say.
Yeah, if you're an LC fan or an X7 fan, you just missed pain.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, you had to put it in there. Yeah, looking at that game one, X7 didn't destroy a single turret. That is kind of a signal that doesn't look too good to me.
No, because in this game, in this particular matchup, we have often talked about, what's going to happen in the early game. Is it going to be a bit slower? Can X7 control the enemy jungler? None of that really happened. They didn't have the laning performances they wanted either. And I've got to say, as someone that's watched X7 throughout the entirety of this year, they very rarely find themselves in a place where they are this outmatched, particularly, in the first game of the day as well. They have a couple of chances to bring it back, but X7, they're not used to this kind of scenario.
Now, on the other end, though, Dino, we've spoken about this in the pre-show a lot. If GameWard gets comfortable with a game like this, I can imagine the team is like, is this the knockout it's going to be like? That's when it gets scary for a team like GameWard, because they tend to make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think X7, as you see now, they were still kind of okay with getting reverse swept, but that's even off the cards now. You're already one game behind. And the question is, what can they still do in this best of 5 against GameWard? If GameWard starts making the mistakes that they tend to make when they get too complacent, I think X7 might be in a position to capitalize. But that being said, I think X7 looked a little bit like a shim of their former self. Like, normally they have a lot of bite back in a game, and now GameWard controlled it in such a way that never really happened. Like, X7 never really got that one fight where you're like, oh, maybe it's not over yet, except that one time that Tempt came out of base with his Ahri, but that was it.
It's only game one, Namira, I have to say,
sure.
But if this happens again after game two, we were saying this is going to be a 5-game series. No, it's going to be a 5-game series.
Yeah, well, one of the things that kind of bring it back to earlier in the year, and maybe a little bit here in summer too, when X7 were on their winning streaks, they were a very confident team. Sometimes that came into overconfidence too. That's been one of their historic faults, I suppose. But this is a team that, actually, when I first cast X7, even before they got into NLC, back in the UK EL, completely different players, somehow the same kind of hallmark. If they start losing games when they're on this confidence streak, they can get a bit rocked. I really hope they have been rocked in this one game, because this is a difficult loss. But if you're going to make it through this quarterfinals against what is a very tough competition like GameWard, you have to be mentally rock solid, and you've got to bounce back now from this point, which is not historically something they've done.
Are you able to turtle against a team like GameWard, Dino, when you're X7?
It's possible, but I just don't think it's what X7 wants to do. I think, Nymera, you hit the nail on the head where you were like, okay, these are not the laners we're used to seeing from X7. Like, we've seen GameWard struggle against...
I get to do the disappointed dad kind of thing very briefly.
Yeah, but you were, and rightfully so. You get an okay match up top that's not supposed to win, but it's supposed to be very strong. You need to impact the map. It doesn't happen. You get a match up mid that's supposed to be able to go either way, and you lose it. And you see as a gold graph, if you try try to turtle with a scaling comp, yes, Game Ward comes online like halfway through the game, so that should kind of be fine, but then you're not playing to your strengths. Then you're not setting up a chassis for success or using Attila's early game prowess. So the question is, even if you're like, oh, we play for the mid to late game, are you even going to win? Don't you just have to set up your players for success?
And now looking at the post-game breakdown, I think it gives a bit of a weird sense of the game, because looking at the damage for Chasey, it's pretty okay, but I kind of felt like he was, one of the losing factors, maybe even the biggest losing factor.
It's a litmus test.
Yeah, it's the litmus test. And the litmus test, I can't remember what the actual colours of the litmus test actually mean nowadays, but it's the wrong one for this game. It's the bad one. See, that's how much I remember my high school science.
Do you want to put Chasey in something like an Ornn, maybe? Do you want to just have him chill, tank up, that kind of stuff?
I think the Aatrox is okay. I think that if you're going, particularly in this draft as well, right? You had, this is 4th pick top, and then you actually still get counter pick from Melnick. Get the counter pick so he's actually got a lane you can actually hit turret on, push the wave in, teleport first to the fight. Because even though Aatrox is a lane dominant champion and a lane bully in a lot of matchups, even took the Comet to help with that game, right? You need to be in a matchup where you can actually leverage that. I think that this champion is okay, the champion archetype is fine, but just pick him something that can actually win against this other champion. Give him the counter pick.
Can you give examples what champions you're thinking of?
So if you're thinking about that, I think Aatrox is absolutely fine into something like that one that you mentioned, into something even like a Renekton. Sometimes if you're the better player, Renekton is kind of on that kind of, it kind of wins against the Aatrox, or rather the Aatrox loses gracefully, but you're still looking for something where you look at it and say, I can just hit the tower at some point, I can push you in. There are multiple champions which can do that, but you need to have the information to do that, and give them counterpick to do that.
But would Vikings' assignment be to keep bot lane safe then?
I mean, Vikings' assignment should be more oriented towards what Akabane is doing on the map and trying to support a lane that might have an edge. I think just in draft in the end, it was really weird. We were talking about it. You had Xin Zhao open, you had Sejuani open. They choose to pick Aatrox themselves first, so that Melonic is set up for what he likes to do, counter pick top, and he picks the Akali and just make sure that he's undivable by the Aatrox and the Sejuani combo. So if you just switch up that last part of the draft, as Nymera suggested, give a good matchup to Chasey that you know he's going to be able to hit the tower, then Viking's job becomes way easier. You don't have to cover for Chasey, you can gank bot, but you can also try to target Akabane so that he doesn't get rolling so early on in the game.
I think all of us just want to know if X7 can bounce back, and lucky for us, we're going to head into our second game of tonight with our casters, Hip, Brain, and Trouble.
Thank you very much, guys. Can they bite back is going to be the real question for us. That was not a very close game. That's probably the best way to word that. I know you've taken some issue of what went on in that game, so I'm gonna kind of pass the mic to you. X7 crumbled.
I think coming from the NLC, both of us were allowed to put our finger a little bit on the team that we have seen for 2 entire seasons now, right? And they made it all the way to quarterfinals over in spring. They went to finals in the NLC in summer, and they got reverse swept by Dusty. And that was due to the fact that they did crumble. They didn't respect side lanes, and your strongest asset if you're X7 right now are your solo lanes, Temp and Chasey. You can say whatever you want for later on stages of the game, but the laning phase was something that X7 has always been giga proud of. These guys were always at least 1,000 gold up over any other laner in the NOC, and they were your pride and joy of your early game, right? When you have these rocks, when you have these walls in mid and top, that means that Viking can make sure that you either shadow these two, gank for these two, or play towards the top side of the map if they're feeling fine. But I think for Temp to actually get solo killed in a matchup that he's very familiar with, because he plays the Swain and he plays against the Swain and he plays the Ahri, he plays against the Ahri, is kind of unacceptable. So right here, the Swain is going to be banned away.
I think that's fine,
but all these AD carries are open. The Caitlyn that was banned before from the sort of game board has been left open. The Yumis, the Lulus, everything is up for grabs. But the Ahri is going to go again to the hands of Tempt, which says that our problem overall was the Swain.
Yeah, but also at the same time, they could just pick up the Zeri here with a Sivir banned away and a Vi. They could literally just take two really powerful picks, deny the Vi from the enemy team, pick up that Zeri, pick up the Vi. I think this is actually a really solid rotation for Game Board, because they can still get their hands on the Yuumi or the Lulu, depending on what's going to be left open, but actually they want to get themselves a more comfortable mid matchup, and they're going to lock into Silas here, so actually leaving the ball a little bit in X7's court, but I think that Vi too much of a power pick here for Akabane. I'd be surprised to see that not get picked up here, but they are actually really running through some options and figuring out what they're going to pick up here.
Hovering over the Rexar are there for Viking as well, and I think if you're Viking here, might want to drop your bot lane and go for a jungle. Maybe go for something like the Trundle, the Wukong, something that you can engage on, something that you can play the 1 versus 1 on. Maybe get a strong mid jungle duel. Like you're thinking of the Rex right there. I think Trundle is a nice pick because if Game Mode wanted just to go towards the more tanky, the message maybe Melonic goes for something like the Ornn, something like the Na, maybe go something for the Sejuani top lane. Trundle sort of diminish the chances of that being picked in picks and bans, which means that the majority of Game Mode will be squishy. One champ can take them out.
Yeah.
Now, what do you prioritize here? Because you could actually prioritize getting something like the Yuumi if you really rate that. But it's going to be the Aatrox again.
Wow.
So on blue side, usually you want to get very solid laners, and Chase, on the Aatrox didn't have a particular problem into the Akali. Like,
no.
The matchup was going even. It was just that the Akali was very problematic in the late game, and Chase didn't necessarily have the agency to join the team fights later
Also,
on.
Camilius was roaming around a lot. So, like, the one time that they went for a 1v1, and Amumu waddled out from bot lane and just, like, jumped in on him. Game Mode thinking about what they're going to pick up here, and they actually do pick Melonic, the Gnar, for the top side. So, these are now matchups decided. It's just going to be bot lane bans now for these final bans. I'm curious to see what's going to get banned. I assume we'll probably see a Zeri get denied here. I don't think X7 want to pick it into the Vi. I don't think they really want Game Mode to play it, so I feel like it's a pretty solid ban for them. Question for me is what else is going to get banned away? Looks like Game Mode focusing a little bit more towards those enchanters, taking away the Renata. Now, what is going to be the answer here for X7?
And here's the problem, Game Mode have first dibs. So if you ban Renata and Lulu and X7 do not ban the Yuumi, then you get the Yuumi for yourself. But I think X7 are looking to get that Yuumi. Again, you have the Trundle, you have the Aatrox, you're going to have a hyper carry down the bot lane. Yuumi is going to be so useful with all this utility later on. And with the Nautilus ban going down here as well, I'm expecting to potentially see something like this. Maybe again they want to handshake the Lulu and the Yuumi with these two. Lulu also very potent and very strong with the likes of Aatrox later on. But what worries me right here is that both of these bot lanes, especially for X7, we've seen Latino, he's Draven.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they want it to be the case as they're banning the Nautilus away as well. And banning that Aphelios Game Ward is probably want to match the Zeri, but since they've locked in the Vi, they do not really care. And since Sivir is also banned, you can just take away the Zeri.
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious to see if this is just going to be a Zeri ban here or something else. They actually deny Camilius, the Amumu. They don't want to deal with all that crowd control. The problem is you know, you've got a Vi on the other side, so you still have that crowd control. You still have the Gnar, which is obviously a little bit more dependent on having his Gnar bar up and available. Game Ward now, over to them. What do you think they're going to be picking up here? They actually go for the Seraphine bot lane.
That could very well be a Seraphine Senna kind of bot lane, something that G2 do a lot. It's very undiveable, it's very obnoxious to play against, but if you stick something maybe like the Draven and you run it down in the early game, then maybe you can get something going on the map, get that Ahri roaming towards the bottom map, get the Trundle. Seraphine very immobile. One pillar is all it takes to get that flash away, but Attila might be resorting back to his good old favorites, the Zeri, which he had a massive win rate with over in the NOC, and the Yuumi, of course, to support that with from Kasing. And again, Yuumi is really strong on the Ahri, on the Trundle, on the Aatrox. All of these three champions plus the Zeri, pretty immortal if you stick a Yuumi on them. Are they going to be able to reach a late game again to utilize that?
That's going to be the real question. If they actually lock in the Leona, so adding to that crowd control, you know, reducing a little bit in that kind of potential damage by not going for the likes of the Senna. But there is a lot of CC on Game Ward, and that's quite a scary thing to run into. Then you look on the Sylas, you know, he has the Subjugate to take away from either Chasey or Viking to make them kind of a little more squishy, a little easier to deal with. He obviously has Temp's ultimate, which is going to be super useful. He also has Kasing's ultimate. There's not too many bad ults for him to be retaken there. Yeah. Yes, they haven't given him like an Ornn or a Gnar ult to take away, but he's going to have an okay matchup into Tempt in the mid lane. He's obviously got a couple of really good ultimates, which will help with the fact that they don't have a consistent AD carry, because these more tanky members will just have resistances sapped away from Checkerlad.
What I see though is that Game Mode have opted to go with full melee champions. The Leona, the Sylas, the Vi, the Na, they all play in your face.
Yeah.
One charm, one ult from Yuumi, one subject that's going to go down to the champion that's going to get further closer to the side of X7, and you instantly capitalize on that. Lot of defenses with Leona once he pops her W as well that you can steal away from the jungle and get him to become mega tanky. So I think it's like if Game Mode oversteps or missteps rather and makes a mistake, they're going to be very heavily punishable because playing a full melee comp is really difficult to execute.
Yeah, it's going to be a much harder draft for them to kind of play out, and I think that's what the difference in the last game was. I think, you know, X7's comp did one thing, and I wouldn't say it was hard to execute on, but it was easy to punish. And especially with the team that Game Mode put together, there was a lot of crowd control there. This time around, I think it's actually the other way around. I think X7 have a couple of ways they can play this game. They have a lot of ways they can punish Game Ward in this game. So if Game Ward are going to win this game, they have to play this very, very, just very well as well. We are on to the Rift for our second game of the day. Obviously, X7 did lose that previous game versus Game Ward, and it was a very one-sided affair, Trouble.
Yeah, and I think X7 know what went wrong, right? It says, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And Attila onto the Twitch right there had one chance and one chance only, and that was to try and get a pick in the mid lane and make it a 4 versus 5 in favor of the set of X7, and they saw the same play from the side of Game Mode over and over and over again, so they knew if you charge up your Q in the mid lane where you don't see anyone from X7, there's a guaranteed rat that's going to be around and you can shut them down, and that was actually the case. Now right here, of course, we're talking about it's much more difficult to execute on a full melee comp from the side of Game Board, fair enough. But when you do have that Seraphine later on to get the shielding and the healing and all this utility that she can give to a comp, especially with the roots as well, keeping someone in place, it's going to be so much easier for a full melee comp to actually function in a team fight. Of course, getting that Seraphine there is going to take a while as well, but so will for the Zeri. And this is why this is head scratcher for me, because again, Attila and Kasink have played the Draven lanes before. Attila has been very dominant with the champion, but yet again, they were not willing to play for that early game prowess, if you will.
Well, as expected, early has been a little bit calmer, but we are seeing Viking actually being slightly proactive here with the fact that he's got a more powerful bot side going for the invade, but GW are aware of that and they are roaming Camilius and Inax up. Gonna take away this blue buff, and there's just gonna be a map split here. Zakabane gonna quite happily go into the blue side on the other side of the map and let's take away a couple of camps and deny, but looks like Viking actually will be pathing over there just at the blue buff, so Zakabane has to be quite careful not to get himself caught out here by the Trundle on the move.
Yeah, and honestly, I think if Viking wanted to, he could stay on that bot quadrant of Akabane's jungle. You've got Permaprior in the mid lane with Ari, you've got Permaprior with Attila and Kasing in the bot lane. You could have taken the entire quadrant. I think right here, Akabane is going to steal the Grom. They're going to ping away the blue. And as you can see right now, Viking is heading towards it. Level 2 only on the Trundle, as he's not been able to get that level 3 yet. But your top lane is not having any prior, so that means Melonic is going to be the first one to move. But on the other side, Tempt might make the move first, but they can't leave Viking out. He's like, yeah, just deal with it. You've got Smite.
Gonna be the Smite off here as he's chasing Akabane out of the jungle. He's gonna be able to hit it. Got that level 3 now for himself as Akabane. Gonna be able to pick up the crab for himself and just deny that one away as Viking is just chasing Akabane into his jungle. He knew he had pressure in that mid lane, but for now, looks like that early aggression, that early advantage is going to just be given over as Attila, able to avoid the beat drop by jumping over the wall, as you expect from the likes of Azeri. It's kind of what this champion does, but is down in levels at the moment. Obviously, there's a large wave pushing into him, and it's going to be on the side of Game World to maybe make something happen. But I think it's just going to be a chiller start, as we expect from these two teams.
Yeah, and right here also Akabane has his entire bot quadrant except that blue buff to clear. He's got the Scuttle Crab as well, unless Viking hovers towards that bot side of the map to try and get it, which is going to be the case. Akabane is going to back, which means that for a few seconds he's going to be more powerful on the map, especially since he's gone back to buy items. So expecting some longswords. There you go, 2 longswords already purchased for the side of Akabane. So he will be looking to take that fight over to Viking if he does find him in the jungle, since Viking hasn't had his first reset yet. But talking about reset, the first resets are happening from the bot lane, and especially when there's a Yuumi on the map, you need to be very respectful and aware that the enemy support will roam first. Camillus walked a little bit further up, got caught from vision from the Scuttle Crab, of course, that Viking did manage to secure, and now he's going to be back in. So for the next few seconds, for the next 30 seconds, Tempt is going to have to be extremely respectful towards a roam possibly coming in from Camillus, because the same thing happened exactly in game number 1, and very nice from Chasey right there.
Really clean, actually. Melanic now down on that flash. And Chasey with the Deathbringer stance and just the sustain built into the Aatrox is feeling fairly comfortable. Melanic about to gnar out, though, so going to be a little bit harder for Chasey to find that 1v1 any further in. But for now, Viking has a kitty cat. And he's actually moving towards the top side of the map, / mid, but not actually going to get himself into too much here. Tempt gets himself caught. Checklat has to flash over the pillar, away from X7. Nothing really lost either side here, as a play was attempted, but everybody brought their support and their jungle into the mid.
And it's expected, of course. We mentioned how Camillus does have that freedom, if you will, to roam wherever he wants. Because Seraphine is a pretty safe champion and you're not necessarily going to die to a Zeri down the bot lane. So, right here, Game Mode are going to play towards the bot side of the map. They know that the Yuumi is just going back to lane, so they're going to use the numbers advantage towards the bot side river to try and take that first dragon off the game. And Viking still has not backed 6 minutes into the game. They're actually pinging him onto the Grom, but now he has backed. He's got Shin, he's got extra HP. That dragon is completely gone.
Yeah, a lot of pressure kind of built up from that bot side towards the mid. And this is what we wanted to see. We really wanted to see the bot lane action. They decide who gets those kind of early objectives. It's something we've seen time and time again from both of these teams. But as you can see, Inax and Attila, we've got some stats for you on how they've kind of been playing. And I think the big thing is X7, a lot of first blood percentage, but for now, they're getting themselves caught out. And Attila going to instantly flash and cleanse away. I've forgotten how to speak, as Camillus going low, but not going down.
And I think Kasing was also caught in the way while he was trying to take the frontline damage. Detach, reattach, get that passive shield from the Yuumi as well. I think he got caught in CC right there, so he couldn't reattach. Almost ends up losing his life. Still had the heal available, but that is one flash from Akabane going down for 2 summoners over on Attila. And this is very important because Attila is running the cleanse and the flash, and Camillus is almost level 6. If he does manage to hit that ultimate onto Attila, they could potentially go all in next time Akabane is towards the bot lane.
Yeah, absolutely. But now mid is still very Tempt favored. Tempt is absolutely dominating this matchup, but not going to be able to find himself a kill at all here. But it's again a very relaxed start for both of these teams, and this is what we expect out of them. They're both two teams who lean heavily on team fighting. And yes, the meta is very bot lane centric. Yes, the meta is a lot of early aggression. A lot of later aggression into team fights with more relaxed starts to the games. But I think these two teams are two teams who heavily lean into that and heavily it just suits them. It's their play style. So we are expecting, less high-tempo early games into explosive team fights in that kind of mid to late game phase.
Absolutely. I think the styles don't clash right here. They're actually pretty similar from the sort of X7 and Game Ward. From the side of Game Ward, they're actually a team that likes to play very slow through objectives. Talking about very slow through objectives, X7 have 4 members towards the top side of the map, whilst Game Ward are bringing 5, but they brought these 5 pretty late, so X7 might get out with murder here, getting that Rift Herald, allowing Attila to stay bot lane and farm while they had to rotate their entire team towards the top side of the map for a Rift Herald that actually went to the sort of Viking. So as we're talking about it, Game Mode are a team that's going to get their early game advantages through sneaking in those objectives. The Dragons, the Heralds, they don't necessarily want to fight. They want to get through these team fights, get their early on advantages, cash in on them through objectives. On the other hand, X7's prowess in the early game is how good their laning phase is.
Yeah.
And that is due to Chasey, Tempt, and Attila always being ahead in CS and gold through their laning phase. And that's how X7 get that early game lead. Now, when it comes to late game, they're just both like to get there just to team fight. You can see the compositions as well. On one, you have a Seraphine. On the other side, you have a Zeri. Really nice
Sean Chekalak's been caught, has to blow the ultimate Tempt. Still holding his for now. Kasing comes in and heals him up. Chekalak gets half his health taken away from him. X7 got that Rift Herald on Viking. The question is where are they going to use that? Because last time they got that first Herald, they placed it down. It didn't get a charge. It was destroyed by the quick rotation from Gameward. This time, Akabane on that top side of the map, he's struggling to potentially contest his Rift Herald, but he's moving up towards the top side, and Chasey might find himself in a bit of trouble here. Has the World Ender, actually just turns a little bit onto Melanic, a bit of damage, but immediately they're just going to chain CC onto Chasey as he's pulled in by the ultimate. Chasey sustaining as much as possible, but he can't live forever. First blood to Melanic.
Really good stuff right there. We said shut down X7 in the laning phase. That's what they're really good at. What does Akabane do? He goes towards the top side of the map, capitalizes onto Chasey, overextending. I mean, he literally just died almost under enemy tower right there. On the other hand, luckily for X7, Tempt has been having a much better time in this matchup in the mid lane. The Ari into the Silas, of course, melee versus range. E7, you're a little bit better in the early game to bully your opponent, but again, Chasey, he's already shoved in that wave underneath enemy tower. You don't have to be there. You do not know where enemy jungler is. And I think this has been one of the issues that we've had with Chasey over in the NOC as well. The fact that he's not necessarily too respectful of turns, if you will, on when the jungler could be towards the top side of the map. He's been getting caught very often.
Oh no.
Chocolate now.
Tempt is in trouble. There is no ult available to Akabane, so Tempt able to avoid that and get himself a bit of damage off with the charm. Again though, Viking, he's always kind of around the map, but not really there making the plays. And right now with that Herald in his pocket, he wants to make a play. He wants to enable his team to put the Herald down. And I think with the chunk onto Checkerlad, they may actually just decide to try and throw the Herald down in the mid lane. But TP's coming out from Checkerlad, and he's just going to go for the reset instead.
I think the better play would be actually giving that money to Attila's Zeri.
Yeah, 100%.
And try to get that Zeri accelerated into the late game as much as possible. Right here, also picking up that Dragon is going to help them a lot. Inax, though, he does have teleport to come into this fight if they want to play and Tempt.
Oh no, Tempt is CC down. Akabane able to find the kill. Dragon's going low. Can they get the snare down? The final chapter's going to be enough, and Viking just flashes over the wall. They lose their mid, but they do gain the Dragon for themselves, and that's a pretty nice one when you got the Zeri.
You had to use an ult, a flash, and a mid laner for a Dragon, which is your first one. I don't think that's worth it.
No.
Tempt is going to lose so much golden experience in the mid lane. He's going to give away one turret plating to Chocolate as well. And he doesn't have teleport to get back into this mid lane, so it could be even two turret platings. Viking is looking towards a bot lane. He's going to pop the Rift Herald, but Akabane is around.
Yeah, they're just going to try and zone him away, make sure this Herald gets in range to actually get the charge off, but immediately all of the CC onto Attila, but he's able to jump over the wall. Viking now gets the kitty cat on him, but the CC is too much. They're going to get Kasing back onto Attila as the charge does go down, and now they're running through these members slowly but surely, chipping away at the health bars, able to dodge away on the Zenith Blade as Attila able to keep himself alive. Didn't get the plate gold from the charge. That gold only went to Viking though.
Yeah, I didn't think so. They couldn't get close enough actually to get that gold over to Attila. So again, X7 are trying to reach for the plays, but Gameward are just reading them all too well. They knew that this Rift Herald was going to go down in that bot lane. It's always in that bot lane. Give that man to Attila. Get his Zeri to be very strong. Shield ball already completed. You need a second, a third item for that Zeri to start coming online, especially when you have a Yuumi attached to it as well. And right now, it's not the worst of early games, but if you look over in the top lane where we said Chase is usually ahead, 500 gold over to Melanic as a gold lead. In the jungle, 800 gold over to Akabane, who's again taking over the map. 100% kill participation onto this fight.
Yeah.
He goes towards that top lane, he shuts down Chasey. He goes towards that bot lane when he knows Rift Herald is going to be popped. He shuts down Viking as well. Doesn't allow any money to go over to Attila Zeri. So I think Akabane has been making circles around Viking this entire series so far.
He really has, and actually keep in mind that gold lead includes the fact that Viking just got 2 plates all to himself, thanks to the charge and the Herald. So that shows how far ahead Akabane is right now over Viking. And Viking, he needs to figure out what's going wrong for him in this series, because he is struggling at the moment versus Akabane on the Vi. And now got that Chemtech chainsaw. They have got the Divine Sunderer onto Viking, as they're actually looking to make some plays onto Attila. Attila will see them coming. He does have the flash. He's going to hold it for a little bit longer, able to flash away in time and hold his life as they get the lockdown down. They get a little bit of damage as well in return. And that's going to be a Summoner Smell now burnt on Attila, which is going to leave him very exposed to a future gank.
That was one ultimate from Leona versus one flash from Attila and Kasing's favorite chapter on the Yuumi. So
final.
No, but she screams, "This is my favorite chapter!"
Oh, is that what she screams?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never played her.
But Viking, that is not your river. That's 5 members of Game Ward.
I think that might not even be his jungle as Chekolad will jump in with the Spirit Rush and is able to steal away the kills. Temp's looking for a good jump. The jump's not going to quite connect from Minax on the Encore. As here comes Chasey into the middle of a whole bunch of members. He's almost got himself the kill. Temp jumps over. Chasey's able to find the kill in a 1-for-1 in the extended trade. They've still got Viking coming up in a few more seconds. Attila is able to steal the Herald for his team. He has done it. It's denied from the side of Game Ward. And Attila, he's still feeling it. He's still vibing the fight, able to dodge away. The charm goes wide, and the Zenith Blade will be able to connect as Camillus is going to run down Tempt. Kasing re-jumps on to his AD carry.
He's
and
mega,
X7
he's
should just
mega.
be able to get away from this one. X7 just about hold firm.
That would have been a whole different fight if Attila had flash and if Kasing hadn't burned his ultimate down bot lane over that gank, because then you would have such huge tools to try and engage over 4 members of Game Ward who were just literally pinched over the ramp between River and that top side quadrant of Akabana's jungle. But again, Viking here, I think this is a big mistake. You do not have any teammates, you do not have any control of the river. There's 5 members of Game Ward running you down and you're all alone. Your top lane is not even in the top lane, you have to TP in mid lane. But again, you see how strong it is for X7 to teamfight when all the members of Game Ward are melees. Because if they do bunch up in that small choke point, that means that Aatrox gets so many sweet spots with that Q3 that you can actually get the reset. And right there, he got the reset, but it was just as about he was dying. Later on fights, if Aatrox does get the reset and he gets that HP back, it's going to be really problematic for Game Ward to take them out, because Attila was actually playing with Game Ward right there. He was walking into their face, he was putting the damage down. Again, 1 Yuumi ult and 1 flash would probably be all it take for Attila to possibly get another kill there.
Yeah.
But all in all, the most important thing is that the Rift Herald, which Game Ward went for, got stolen away. But Game Ward ran away with kills.
Oh, Chekolad absolutely slamming Tempt in that fight there as Melanic will pick up the first tower of the game in the top side. So tell this game's going at a fairly low tempo when first tower is at 16 minutes. Well, almost 17 minutes to be fair as well. So bit of gold injection there into Melanic, able to pick that up and actually chipping away at this next tower as Game Ward are starting up the Cloud Drake. There's no response from the side of X7, and I think that's almost been the story of this series, is Attila is top lane. You are right, Melanic jumping away, but they've got the final chapter. They've got the lockdown. Melanic is trying to find the kill onto Attila, but the shield bow will keep him alive and shut down over to the side of Chasey. Dragon in return for the side of Game Ward.
That was way too close for comfort. That's an Eclipse, Shield Bow, Aatrox and Zeri together with a Yuumi. The exhaust has to go down, the cleanse has to be used, and Tempt has been caught.
He has been caught, the CC's on, he's jumping away, he's charging out, but he's unable to do so. Viking, a little bit too slow to the play, and Tempt just too far up. His whole team's top side. He shouldn't have been playing bot side at all.
Again, I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnection in this particular series from the side of X7. It's very uncharacteristic for both Tempt and Chasey to make these mistakes, especially Tempt. For Chasey, we've said that, yes, sometimes he overextends, he tries to go for these trades, he likes to play aggressive, but for Tempt, he's very calculated in his moves. He always knows the min-maxing of pushing the lane, of trading, but right now, he's going solo killed, he's not respected enemy ganks, he's not respected support roams, and right now he's hitting 0 and 3, 700 gold behind the Sylas, who is going to scale so much into that late game. And if Attila on this Zeri doesn't actually play the team fights flawlessly and gets caught by any form of CC from the side of Game Ward, he's going to end up going down real quick.
Yeah, completely right there. The story of this series is X7 just not understanding the map versus what Game Ward are doing. Game Ward just seem to have such a grip on the map, even in a game where we were like, oh, they've got 4 melees, they're at a disadvantage because of that. It's a lot harder for them to kind of play out their conditions, but they're still controlling the map. They're still controlling all of the tempo of this game, and X7 are just a beat behind. Yes, we've seen some signs of life from them. That might just be a bit of the comps coming in, but then again, there is still, as we move into the later stages of the game, Zeri's going to be scaling. You've got the Yuumi as well. Aatrox Yuumi late game, going to be really scary. Trundle Yuumi as well, late game. Very scary to deal with. So as this game does go later,
X7, I expect to see some more life from them, and they're only down 3,000 gold. It's not a small amount of gold to be down, but that gold lead is spread out. It's spread out across everybody. You know, there's 700 in the bot lane in the AD carry, 800 mid, 900 top jungle, a 1,100 top lane. Like, the gold lead is very spread out, so it's not so far gone like last game at this point where we were like 6,000 to 7,000 gold up, and that gold lead didn't matter how spread out because each individual member had like half an item over their opponent.
And don't get us wrong, the only reason we're going on about X7 not playing their peak game is because we've seen them for 2 entire seasons. This is not their peak game, and Game Ward are playing their own game. They're playing it to perfection. They're playing to their win conditions, and if we want to see 5 games, X7 are going to have to step it up and play the best League of Legends that we know them to play, and that is through Attila carrying these late game team fights. As you mentioned, you've got the tools, you've got your front line, you've got your Yuumi, you have been getting fed 2 items on that Zeri, looking for 1 more, and I'm expecting X7 to start going forward.
Looking in for the side of Viking. Camillus is going low. Akabane taking so much damage from the Baron. Attila also half HP for the moment. Camillus able to survive. Nobody has gone down yet as Camillus eats the W from the Zeri. They get another charm off into Checkland. He loses a lot of HP. Viking caught for the moment as Akabane pinned him by the pillar. Vikings going low, healed up by the Yuumi, and somehow X7 are holding this fight together. Melodic flashes forward, and down they go, 1 by 1. X7 are crumbling to Game 1. Tempt is chasing down. Checkland finds a double kill as 3 members of X7 fall.
Game Ward are having the fight of their lives. They have 4 melee members and 1 Seraphine. Guess what happens when you walk through a very narrow choke point as 4 members or 5 members from the side of X7? Yeah, you get hit by Seraphine, you get rooted in place, and you get hit by all of these melees that find it so difficult to close the distance between them and Zeri, between them and Ari. X7 just gave it to them on a platter, and Game Ward are very happy to run away with 3 kills and the Baron. And even though we're saying, oh, that gold lead was not that huge of a deal, right now it's a 6,000 gold and they're gonna take towers and a bunch of gold from that through that Baron. But again, Viking extremely overextended, and Akabane again finding Attila, taking his cleanse, getting out of dodge, and then returning. But look at this. Inax is permanently slowing whoever comes through, putting that damage down, healing and shielding his teammates as well. So X7, again, Viking overextends right here, almost ends up dying. And you want to fight through a narrow choke point. That Narch got mega. You're lucky for everyone that flashed away, but it wasn't enough because whoever got left behind ended up dying from Game Ward. So then again, I think X7 are not playing these team fights particularly well, and they're getting caught by Game Ward in, again, very narrow spaces that they shouldn't be.
No, you're completely right. They are just taking suboptimal fights into a team who want you to be clustered, want you to be grouped up, and you nailed it as well. Akabane able to find Attila and just find a free kill. It was such a freebie, or not a kill, but at least zone their AD carry, their kind of main damage dealer in these fights out of the game. Now, Chasey able to get himself a objective shutdown by taking that tower. Akabane going to be quite happy to pick up this dragon. It's going to be uncontested, but the next one needs to be fought here by the side of X7 as Camillus finds himself caught for the moment. The subjugate is on. They lock him down with a pillar. The flash out for the moment. The team being in members, and Attila might be in trouble. Checkerlad able to get himself a chain lash on. The encore connects onto Viking, and Viking loses his life. Melodic is now gnawed out, and this is scary for X7. Tempt hasn't got ultimate in time. He misses the charm, and he is taken down. The slam into the wall as well means Chasey will be quick to follow. Game Ward have done it. They've taken 3 members out. They have Baron, and the death timers are just way too long for X7 to hold fast here. Tower number 1 will be going down. The inhibitor will be left exposed. Can X7 hold on? 10 seconds, 9 seconds still Viking. They've still got a little bit of a wave. It's being chipped away. Attila pops the ultimate. He's caught out by the beat drop and the Everfrost. All the CC's on. Attila jumps over the wall to get away. The first tower's down. Vikings up, but he's being slowed. The minions are slowly diminishing away, and X7 are able to hold fast for just a little bit longer as GW are just getting out. They're happy with what they got there, and they're out.
Oh, the team is being pulled in. Tempt is TPing back in.
No way, Tempt, are you doing this? Tempt, why are you doing this? He has to ult away. That's 1, that's 2 charges used. He's able to hold it for the moment, and X7 are not done. They are hunting in for members.
The pillar is catching them out, but look at the encore. Look at the solar flare. Look at the team fight falling apart in the scenes for the side of X7. Attila remains untouched. JC! What a jump into the middle of everyone. Attila's able to hold his life. It's JC now onto Camillus, looking to find himself another kill. The Infernal Chains connect. It's a quadra kill for JC as he's jumping after Chickalad. Chickalad's able to limp away. How did X7 hold on?
We criticized Chasey. We mentioned how he had to step up, and damn well he did. Tempt right here wasn't going in for the kills. He was going in as the bait. He was trying to split Game Ward in two places. You see 4 members down. Akabane went top, but there's not enough mana on Akabane. There's not a lot of mana on Inax, and they can't necessarily play too much front to back. Attila, though, is stuck on the side and not able to put down the DPS that he wants to, and Viking completely melts. But once that goes down, Chasey jumps in and gets a 3-man pull into his Q3, and when he starts getting these resets, he gets his ultimate back up, grabs Camillus as well. And that was many shutdowns that went to the side of this Aatrox. So now you stick that Yumi onto the Aatrox, and you spray and pray that Chasey and that Aatrox are big enough to carry the team fight. But let's not run too fast. Let's learn how to walk first before we learn how to run.
Walk, yeah.
It's 5,000 gold still for the sort of Game Ward. Insane scaling still for Game Ward. The Sylas, the Seraphine. You've got the Narav in the top lane as well. A lot of anti-healing coming in from
Attila.
both sides.
Okay,
Attila does have his flash.
He's okay.
Flash doesn't really do much for a Vi if she presses R.
Yeah, she's just following you the whole way, and 2 towers standing outside the base make that 1, because Chickalad's going to make easy work of that, taking the tower down. And they've still got to deal with the supers in the bot lane. They've got 1 tower in front of their Nexus right now. And about 2 minutes until that inhibitor respawns. So
I don't know, man. Is this Zeri bugged? I've seen Zeris in the LPL. They press W, they take 80% of someone's HP bar.
It's just a coin flip. It's a coin flip.
No, is it maybe that like LPL Zeris get a buff or something? What is it?
Yes, I know. You might be right there. To be fair, this is... I did notice that earlier. I was like, this is not the most damage I've seen a Zeri W do. Like, I'm slightly surprised to actually not see someone just lose half their health to the mini Lux laser. That is Zeri W. And I think, you know, the side of GW, they're still ahead in gold. They're still ahead in the map pressure. They're still ahead in a lot of metrics. But they are going to be playing a little bit more respectful to what X7 can do.
If we look over to the top side of that minimap as well, the entire quadrant has been lit up in Red Woods. There is no way for X7 to actually face check in there, and the Baron is coming up. So important. Game Ward have set down their vision. They're waiting for their prey to walk in. Melonic now is going to go into Milna form, so he needs to expend that real quickly and then start charging up the next one. Fighting through these very narrow choke points, being grouped up for X7 is equal to death. If you get hit by Seraphine Old, Seraphine Root, if you get hit by Megana, everyone dives in and someone dies from the side of X7. The Baron's going to get started. X7 are piling up.
They are, but they're going to try and slowly check their way in. They know the GW are just baiting them into a fight. They don't want to pay victim to it.
Look at the bot side of the map real quickly.
Oh, no.
Because all the super minions are running into the base whilst Game Ward want to do the Baron. There is teleport on both Tempt and Chasey, but you need to be very swift because your base will just fall if you just TP in and the fight just gets completely stopped by Game Ward.
Yeah, they're holding up for the moment. Checkerlad steals away everything. There we go. The charm connects. Not onto Attila. The teleport's coming out. But instantly, GW lose a lot of health immediately off the back of that as Tempt jumps forward once more time. He's going to try and find himself a charm onto Camillus. Able to do so. As in comes Chasey into the middle of everyone. He's dead. He's CC'd down. And Attila is being jumped onto by Checkerlad. They're trying to finish him up. They're able to connect the charm. Checkerlad healing over the Kingslayer. Holding fast as Kasane goes down. And X7, they've lost their major tool to keep themselves going.
There's teleports. There's 3 teleports on the side of Game Ward. They're going to end.
This is going to be the end. X7 are going to be knocked out. They're trying to teleport out in time. The big drop, the interrupt. They stop him from getting back to base as they're teleporting their 3rd member in. Attila is trying to hold up. Vikings are now alive. He's bringing in the Trundle. Can he keep himself going in time? Flashes away from Melanic. Gets sent packing. Gets sent back, and he is out. Chasey's not going to be up in time as the Nexus will go down. Game Ward go 2-0 in the series.
An LFL well, they've come to play because they're playing League of Legends, but they've not come to play in terms of there's just not even been rivaled here.
Yeah.
X7 are trying, but they're facing a huge wall, and mind you, that's the 4th seed from the LFL. That is
Yeah.
the fourth.
Scary region. Really, really
Very scary region, and honestly, I'm quite disappointed from what I'm seeing coming out from X7, but I think game would have come here. They're playing their game. They're bleeding their enemy teams through objectives. I think you need to get Akabane off that Vi. You just need to get him off the Vi, force him into something like his Lee Sin or his Zinzao, something that you control much easier with maybe something like a Poppy, but get him off of that Vi, man, because he has been literally tearing apart the entire early game, and I feel like from an X7 side point of view, I just need to see more from Viking. He's always there, but he's there second to Akabane.
I think that's the key thing. Viking always feels half the tempo behind his opponent there. And Akabane on the Vi just completely dominating that game. It was more life from X7, but it wasn't enough, and now their backs are well and truly to the wall. We are going to throw it over to a quick break, and when we're back, we're getting ready to go into game number 3, so we'll see it in a moment.
Whoa.
He's a desist!
Hey, let's go. Did they pick Timo? Yeah, you know I don't really do this too often. Yeah, I'll be good for real. Just watch. Yeah, hey, how you gon' feel when I take it? How you gon' feel when I take it? We about action, we don't say shit. We about action, we don't say shit. Coming for the crown, I need my fit. I don't stay in rooms that I don't fit in. She swear that I stay up on her mind like a fitted. Ain't that cash? She probably wouldn't give me time if I ain't around. Please see me, email me. I need all formalities, I need all incentives. This money's about the only thing I'm mine, like my business. That's black on, the type of wave I've been on. And it's always got to crash like it's Windows. Need all of that and more, give me all the gold. Give me one play, I'm on 24, Kobe right in that hour. Shot wet just like showers. Tell me who got all of that power, oh that's me. I carry loaded team, I get that ring, I'm MVP. Know that they MVP just like cement, I'm in these streets. No opportunity, knock at the door, I give you keys. My mama raised me selfish, I don't share, I play for keeps. And that's all game time, know that win all mine, I'ma keep it, baby. How you gon' feel when I take it? How you gon' feel when I take it? We about actions, we don't say shit. We about action, we don't say shit. Yeah, how you gon' feel when I take it? Yeah, how you gon' feel when I take it? We about action, we don't say shit. We about action, tell me how you gon' feel. Yeah, when I take your spot, tell me how you gon' feel. Yeah, only thing I need is time and all this is on shit. Yeah, tell me when I take your spot, tell me how you gon' feel. Tell me how you gon' feel. Yeah, hey, how you gon' feel when I take it? How you gon' feel when I take it? We about action, we don't say shit. We about action, tell me how you gon' feel.
When the shots by my soul at ease, yeah. If I go down, I might cause a scene, yeah. Them scheme, them go to sleep, yeah. They don't wanna come war with me, yeah. Make it run, make it run, run, make it run. Make it run, make it run, run, make it run. When the shots by my soul at ease, yeah. If I go down, I might do. Platinum, I got on my hair,
head, oh, they thought I would find out, yeah. Gotta be joking, I ain't been 100, how do you sound now, yeah? Oh, you better focus, I'm locked and loaded. This ain't a game, you get forfeit. We back your trophies, better not get cold, please. Starving, the whole team was dinner, now they garbage. We mobbing, y'all really goofy, that ain't not a problem. I'm cautious, I've been on these snakes, just the garden. We novice, operations done in my apartment. They block it, OG with the K, ain't no stopping. Better not let me out the shade, they catch the problem. You can keep the rings, we just want the crowd. You can keep the rings, we just want the crowd. When the shots fire, my soul at ease, yeah. If I go down, I might cause a scene, yeah. Them scheme, them go to sleep, yeah. They don't wanna come war with me, yeah. When the shots fire, my soul at ease, yeah. If I go down, I might cause a scene, yeah. Them scheme, them go to sleep, yeah. They don't wanna come war with me, yeah. Make it run, Ricky, run, run, Ricky, run. Make it run, Ricky, run, run, Ricky, run. Make it run, Ricky, run, run, Ricky, run. Make it run, Ricky, run, run, Ricky, run.
Welcome back to the Amazon EU Masters, live from our studio in Berlin. As you see, I'm not awkward, he's not awkward either, but we are two analysts ready to break down something that happened in that last game that caught our eye, because, let's be honest, most of these fights have been fairly scrappy. This one was a bit longer run at it.
Yeah, this one actually maybe was okay to put on a telestrator. All the other fights were over pretty quickly, I think. But it also showed how much of a difficult time X7 actually had with navigating these fights. I think GameWard really had X7's number in the first two games, and it really showed in this fight where X7 tried to do some work, but they really got caught off guard.
Yeah, so we're going to pause it at a couple of points. First big point is this, because what we're going to go see is Akabane flying over the wall onto X7's Attila. A lot of this fight is going to come around actually trying to fight around certain choke points, like actually just north of that into this point too. What you can see is that because Akabane is going straight onto Attila, Attila isn't going to have his ultimate, isn't going to have his mobility to fight on that choke point afterwards. Anything else to add on?
The Yumi's also on Attila, so you're basically getting a 2-for-1 special where you do the hard engage on the carry, but you're also keeping the Yumi out of the fight.
Yeah, so then when that's kind of done, you look at Attila kind of say like, oh heck, this is kind of awkward. You're fighting over this choke point, and once again, you've got kind of this point where everyone's fighting around here, but Attila's not in the right place for it. So it gets really difficult after that point.
Yeah, this happens a lot. Also, if you see where Tempt is, he's trying to encroach up onto the choke point to see if he can actually make something happen, to see if he can actually help his team out. But because of Akabane hard engaging and getting the Seraphine ulti on top of it, it's just one member you lose to get a carry out of the fight, which is amazing for GameWard, because even though Camilius drops low, he never drops down.
Yeah, so after this point, a couple of things start to become really, really awkward. One, Attila doesn't really have the fighting potential. He's down very much out at this point. And one thing which actually caught my eye, which is really interesting at this point, is GameWard really just assessing who's going to be winning this fight. Whoever is in this spot is in a really difficult point, because particularly if you're X7, you're attacking from one angle. If you're GameWard, you're fighting from two. But either way, if you are stuck here and you don't have ultimates available, you're stuck in this huge quagmire of abilities and damage. And immediately after the first parts of the fight, GameWard and X7 have both traded a lot of ultimates, but I feel like GameWard care less about their ults. They're ahead in the game. They've got better basic abilities, particularly on the likes of the Silos with so much ability. And after this point, it gets very difficult.
Yeah, but look at as well how the fight for X7 really breaks down now. You have Attila on one side. He never really left the side where he got pushed away from. And then Chasey went to fix the lane top side to get some healing. But look at Chasey now. If you pause right here, he's left on an island. He's not playing top lane at all. He's just dying in a fight where Attila just disengaged. And as you said, just controlling the choke point was so huge for Gameward that Inax never even got touched. And that's why they don't care about ultis. If you have a Seraphine, everybody has 5 HP bars.
And then you can just see how they just run over the fight at that point. And this is the last real big point. Once you start losing a fight against Gameward, they have enough ability to chase you down. So a couple of key things happen in this fight. One, immediately assessing who the threats are on X7, shutting Attila out of the fight, using your better mobility, burning a load of ultimates and controlling the terrain just a lot better than X7 did. And that's basically how Gameward took what was probably the closest contested fight that we had in the series. Well, that's all we got from this clip, so we may as well bring things back over to the desk over here and join Orchid, who's been sat out for a while. Happy to have you back.
I actually am Orchid, so I'm happy to have you guys back here. But yeah, a lot of stuff that happened in that fight and a lot of stuff that sounds logical, but it always helps when you have someone drawing on a board. So thank you, Namira. Thank you, Dine. You know, and another really good game from Gameward gets them a 2-0 lead. And I must say, I have to call you out on your predictions. Both of you, we said, we're doing the full 5 series thing. No, I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, if we want to do it, it's time for the reverse sweepies to reverse sweep or something like that. I mean, X7 really needs to start and wake up. I think Gameward has come to play. That has been obvious. But I think X7 has done some weird stuff in draft where they have a read on how Gameward wants to play, but it's not centered around even the Vi pick of Akabane. But I think that's the biggest issue. You now see a secondary draft come out where Vi is still the main aggressor, but you have follow-up from a Leona and a Seraphine.
And I must say, Namir, I don't know how you feel about this, but I had it's a slow start. You know, this could be something good for X7 up until this Rift Herald fight where they get the steal, but they just extend the fight a bit too much.
So we were looking at plays like, oh, we should really break down one of these fights.
Yeah.
And we were wondering about this one, and I was sat there like, no, the only reason that fight happens is because X7 take that fight without due setup, and Gameward, they have continued to be more decisive, continue to be really just on point in terms of following up on this. And that's the problem when it comes down to this draft discussion, even though Chasey does get one good fight towards the end of this game. This feels like it's an execution issue rather than the draft issue. I think we do get quite attached to the idea of draft diff because it's quite interesting in our big strategic